What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 50 of The Overview. I'm ChanManV, and we've got a whole new cast here today. Ben and Jason got the night off, so today we've got Flame joining us. What's up, buddy? How's the snow over there?
Yeah, it's pretty wet, cold, and frigid.
Well,
Icy.
snow days. Snow days are good, right? Did you have to go to work?
No.
Okay, yeah, good.
Woe to anyone who stayed an extra day after PAX.
Oh, I know, right?
Immediately after. Let me just tell you that.
Holy crap. I mean, you might have been stuck there, right? Potentially with all the
For like
storms
a
and everything.
week, probably.
Yeah.
If anyone was flying out today, they're probably not flying out.
It's
until,
crazy. But also joining us, as you can see here, is ZP and Hex over in Denver, where they've spent the last month at the Carbon Studios. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Of course, well acclimated to Denver at this point, and just hang out before we head out to the studio a little bit later to do not 2, but 3 best of 5s later today. Making up for Detroit. We're making up for Detroit losing power.
But there's no snow here, and I agree with Flame. Snow is cold, wet, and stupid. So luckily, our weather's holding out.
There's no snow over there? That's crazy, man. It's like the winter, right? Or at least almost spring, but still, you think
Denver
that'd be...
weather is an anomaly. It just makes no sense at all.
Ah, okay.
Denver weather is more unpredictable than too easy in a competitive game.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It begins.
We're too easy on a competitive team these days. It's been crazy. But all right, we got...
He's really good at building teams.
He is. He definitely is. And it's something that we were talking about one time. He'd be a great general manager for different teams because you can scout talent like the best. But we got lots to talk about. PTR, we're going to start off with just like as always. And we spent so much time last week talking about PTR. And then, of course, a day after, they just revert everything, almost everything. So, obviously didn't get a chance to talk to each of you guys about the changes. But overall, let's just talk about the current state of it, which is all the Ana grenade buffs were reverted. Zenyatta's Discord was reverted. How do you like Ana just having a nerf to her rifle right now? Flame, have you start off?
I mean, it's not enough, I think. I don't know. Conceptually, the grenade's just really strong and like probably too strong as a concept in a game around healing and damage, right? So I don't know. I think that they could have met halfway if they were going to nerf it. Like they took away a load of damage, then they brought back or end healing, and then they brought back both in full strength. I think they definitely could have like found a halfway mark there and just compromised.
Okay.
The grenade is ridiculously strong. There's really no doubt about that. It's also one of the easier to use parts of, well, it's weird. It's like easy to use in many situations, but there are more skill-based lobs to it. I will say at the very least, as someone who does play a lot of Tracer and heroes that can be affected by breakpoints of the rifle change, you're no longer going to get two-shot by the rifle. And I think you will notice a difference if you play a lot of Ana in regards to how many times you can get kills with the nerf damage versus the old damage. But as mentioned, I'm not sure it's quite enough.
I would echo most of those sentiments. I don't dislike the grenade as much. I think that a lot of heroes, we'd be better off looking at cooldowns more than anything else, because I think Ana especially, you see so many great comms in competitive matches where people are like, dart is out, grenade is out. So calling those cooldowns I think is really interesting. But I do overall like the approach that Blizzard's done in the last month, that 1, they're at least listening, and 2, they're not going full bore on we're going to nuke a character or we're going to overbuff a character. It seems like they are at least meddling in the middle.
That's a really good point to bring up, just because
Flame
Flame disagrees, but I will
Maybe
say
after a
so-
couple iterations, it's in the middle.
So, well, yeah, more so than they were. at
Right,
least.
because you can't have it both ways, right? You can't go compare. Let's talk about when D.Va got buffed, right? Or it goes, why did you change so many things at once? And now
Right.
they're going to Ana doing tuning. You can't go then when they're tuning Ana and go, why didn't you change so many things at once? It's sort of like, okay, you can have it one way or another way. And in this case, they're definitely going more the route of moderation and adjusting Ana. But for me, if I had to pick between one of the two changes, I'd probably hit the grenade before hitting the primary.
Okay. Flame, you had something to add there or no?
Well, like I guess on the topic of not doing too much at once, it's a little like the Zenyatta change that they added, like kind of just throws it out the window, like that through the shield thing. I mean, they obviously
reverted it
but-
now, so
Right.
it's
But
not
the
even a thing.
conceptual
Yeah.
thought process to like add it is like what's scary, I guess. That like
Well, I think it's good overall that Blizzard's tinkering, and they haven't done that before. In the first like year of the game, it was like this is going to happen. We're going to do all of this at once. So now, at least, the big thing for me was, hey, they're listening a little bit to some of these changes, because when the Bastion came through on the PTR untouched, I think a lot of people felt betrayed in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jake mentioned it last week, where just having such a huge change to Zenyatta and having a huge change to Ana, it just forces this, huge switch or influx of people stopping and playing Ana versus, playing Zenyatta. And that type of, those type of changes versus just iterative small changes just seem to be, so drastic that it can be disastrous, if they do make a mistake with it. So I definitely like the smaller iteration.
Well, I mean, it's particularly worth noting when it comes to support heroes that you're not working in a vacuum, right? It's not like a more developed game that's been around for 5 years where you look at one classic heroes and you have 20 heroes where you don't have to think, we've nerfed this hero. As a result, we're going to see X, Y, and Z with other heroes. Heroes can exist more in their own bubble. Whereas in Overwatch, very clearly, you have only so many options for direct healers in this case. So if you take away Ana or people feel Ana suddenly too weak, you're going to be pushing people over the Zen. And then you have a situation where you buff Zen in the same patch, and yeah, you could very well cause a mass exodus from Ana. So the support hero is definitely a little bit more linked in regards to who's playing what, just because you do have so few to select from right now.
Yeah. Also with Sombra, they added that hacked health packs can now be seen by your teammates. Pretty big thing, right? You guys think just charging Sombra's ult and having your entire team be able to know which health pack it is versus going on voice and saying, hey guys, it's that health pack over there in the room. So if you guys want to help me charge my ult, go over there.
I can't say this with authority, but if I had to guess where that balance change is coming from, Blizzard has stats about what people are playing at every different skill level in the game. And I would assume that in those stats that they have there is that people weren't really utilizing hacked health packs all that well. And Sombra's win rate probably isn't all that high at the lower skill levels of the game, if I had to guess. So that's probably a change where they looked at that and said, we're not going to affect the high end balance much at all by doing this, but we are going to help people that are newer to the game and people that might not be aware of our abilities. So it's a change that it's a good quality of life change. And I can't think of a negative by doing that. So it's nothing but value add.
Yeah, I think it's more of a, like, when you're playing the game, sometimes even as a tracer or something, you're like, oh, look, surprise, that health pack's hacked. Like, I guess it's more to get rid of that scenario where if you're on your team, you're like, oh, I can play around this now, or I can stand over here. So it's more of it's definitely just a straight buff, but it definitely has, definitely value and should help her in some way.
Yeah, I agree with ZP2. I think a lot in the lower ranks, this will.
Well, Sombra players are afraid to talk because the moment they open their mouth, they're going to take off a Sombra.
Get the hell off that hero!
Shut up!
There is a weird part here where you go into comp games, people say they get on voice, and yet if you have someone that does main a more off-traditional hero, their best chance of getting through the game and not tilting their entire team is actually not engaging and just going off. Because if someone for example, auto picks Hanzo, but then is on voice, people go, well, he's just on voice, whatever. Like, they'll let it go. But if a guy sits there and then defends the pick, one way or another, I'm not saying who's right or wrong in the situation, but just general concept. If you sit there and defend, your entire team is going to get tilted. So
that's true. Sometimes the best just not to say anything. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for the PTR changes. I'm not sure what to expect. We didn't actually see any changes to a reset this week. So I don't know if it's just because of a lack of data. We will talk a little bit more about the PTR in terms of Jeff Kaplan doing an AMA. Yeah, so that's all we got right now. We might see some changes this week. Who knows?
Reset ships next week, so
yeah. Well, I think it's already just at this point, right? It's just getting approval from the consoles and stuff. Riza's locked in, and I guess we'll see her as is. And all right, well, let's move on to a Carbon Series since we've got the guys here, and we've definitely talked about some Carbon Series the last couple weeks, given that we had Jake, and he was just telling us from the perspective of LG Evil, which was they were just dominating. But it'd be good to get a just y'all's take on it. Y'all's take on just being in Denver for long in the Carbon studios and how those guys are treating you. But overall, what do you guys think? Just Carbon Series for casting and just working it.
Overall, it's been a great experience. There's really nothing more to say in regards to that. The people who've been working with have been great. Carbon has a great mind for how they've been setting up the series. I think the games have been very good so far. The teams involved have enjoyed. We've had storylines that we didn't necessarily expect coming in that have developed. Some storylines we did expect. For an event that is being done online, but in studio production, I couldn't really ask for anything more.
I think when they first pitched it to us, what I was most excited about was to do something consistent and just to bring consistent every day of the week Overwatch, because weekend events are fun and tournaments are fun to run for a weekend or something like that. But I think you really get identities of teams. You find out who teams are, who they're good against, and having this giant format of 10 games over 5 weeks. And that it's just, I've always liked esports where I know on Monday night I can tune into this. On Tuesday night I can tune into this. I like that regimented schedule. That was a big selling point for me. And yeah, the Carbon guys have been great. They take our feedback. We take their feedback. We're trying to get better every week and try to go things going. And Denver's been great. And living with ZP has been more than tolerable, surprisingly.
Also, real quick here, Chad Man, more than tolerable. So, I mean, he's not saying it's been great,
Yeah.
but he hasn't wanted to leave midway through.
That's high praise from me.
Right. So one quick note here, going in here, Chan Man. Chad is saying you should make like Lucio and turn up the volume, at least for me and Hex.
Okay,
this is
sure.
Coming in pretty loud.
We must be heard.
We must be heard.
Amp it up.
Amp it up. Exactly. Okay. Well, we've amped it up, so hopefully you guys can hear them a little bit better. Flame, you've been catching all the matches?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I'm obviously not there or whatever, but I think from my perspective, it's a little hard sometimes to like the teams. There's so much roster swapping going on right now during this tournament. I mean, that's been the case for all the tournaments, but like that's my only criticism. But that's not the org. That's like the teams themselves that are like, oh, we can't get 5-6 people in the server. Like I think Immortals has played with a sub like 3 games in a row or something. Just like stuff like that makes it like so, I don't know, it like ruins some of it for me, but that's chill.
You're in a tough spot as a tournament organizer too. There are some rules in there about roster swaps and about penalties and things like that. But the Overwatch rosters have been so volatile since the beginning of Overwatch that you can't say, well, you're forfeit now, you're out. Because if you did that, you'd end up with, at this point, 6 teams in it because of all the roster swaps. So we try to balance it between, you can't bring in new players every week because it gets difficult for the viewer's sake as well, but like we don't want to penalize you having you forfeit games. We're trying to do some sort of balance there. It's hard to strike.
Well, from a tournament organizer perspective, you are cutting off your nose to spite your face at that point where you go, why are you guys doing this? Here's a forfeit as a penalty. By the way, we now have half our content planned for the night.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that you really.
No, yeah. I'm not like flaming the TOs or anything. I just think it's like the scene itself is making the tournament harder. It's making it harder as a viewer to like get behind some of the matches where you're like, oh, Liquid playing with a new player this week and Immortals with their 3rd sub of the tournament and like, you know, Renegades with their 2nd Genji this month. It's like it's just the NAC needs to get their shit together is more or less what I'm trying to say.
In defense of Immortals, what's been going on with them is basically unavoidable. I think there were 2 main things here, which is that Hyped had it in one match, or actually, I think this goes back to Overwatch Monthly Melee. Yeah, but regardless, but we were talking about sub situations with Immortals. It was Hype's computer dying, and then it was Ethan who I think had a death in the family. So that's, you can't really plan around that. So I give Immortals.
Yeah, Immortals can have the pass, but complexity, new tanks, like I don't know. It's
like, I give them one
headache,
pass
man.
because so for complexity, their first roster shift, of course, was Winghaven left the team, Harblue left. They couldn't deal with that, so they brought in KO and Chow, who did not cover themselves in glory. So they were removed. And then you had Bishu and Decop come in. And as far as I know, Bishu and Decop were welcome to stay with complexity, but they both left for different reasons, where Bishu was picked up by an anonymous organization who knows what info we'll get about
that. Classic NA Overwatch.
And so Bishu, that was a complexity's choice. And then Decop, I think, went to the spicy method roster of things, or that's what we're going to be calling that, where it's method, but spicy players are on it. So for complexity, that was really out of their control. They couldn't keep those 2 players.
I hear it. It's just, it's just how it is.
If you want to stay on complexity, you have to be good, but not too good. Apparently, they're trying to find that line in between there. Then LG Loyal switching off some things.
There's like that mentality, right? There's a mentality of like, I don't want to be the person that solves these teams' problems. Like, I'd rather someone else solve mine. You know, it's like you don't want to be if you're a new player, you don't want to be the best player on the roster. Yeah, that's kind of a thing.
It's true.
So
it's definitely true. So I guess the theme of this is if your roster can stay consistent, then you're going to be winning. So I mean, how much of this?
Tell Immortals that. I don't know.
or LG Loyal, who's not so loyal anymore. Like I don't know. It's
LG disloyal.
LG Loyal hasn't changed. I mean, they haven't had sub at all, right? During these.
Well, no, they swapped out too.
Again, they're another team. Right. You forget, dude. You actually just forget how many teams lost players. Like we just went through 6 rosters that have swapped 2 players each.
Yeah, and now we have, Renegades with Ico last night. Just LG Evil seems to be the only one that's been pretty consistent with the roster, and you know it's shown. I mean, with the standings being 7-0 right now.
But on the same note, it's also very easy to keep your roster consistent when you're winning every game.
I know.
What ascension are you going to have there? All right, guys, we're just winning too much. Let's change it up. I mean, not every team can be the old school IDDQD team that did just that. You know, going way back into the day.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the standings then. So you just mentioned that LG Evil is 7-0, and we got Renegades, who was in second place, just with one loss actually going into last night. Played a tight series with the LG Evil guys and ended up losing 3-2. It was competitive, even with Ico playing with them, and I think a lot of us, I think including you guys too, went into it thinking that LG Evil would handle Renegades pretty, easily, maybe 3-1, 3-0 there, but it was much, much tighter. So what does that tell us about? Was it the comp issue? I know you were mentioning a lot of Mangaju playing Pharah and LG Evil not really responding with your typical hit scan character to deal with it.
LG Evil clearly went in with approach of saying, well, we can ignore Mangachu and then just beat them with our game. And their game was putting Jake on the Genji. And clearly that did not work out, because the problem is that an uncontested Pharah can literally just float above you, get healed, lay down a lot of damage. You have to do something to contest it. And yeah, I mean, at that point, you're running the Pharah. You don't necessarily have the best things to deal with the Genji, but the Pharah is applying a lot more pressure to your backline than the Genji is, who's getting checked more naturally by other tanks and things that Pharah can work around at many points. So LG Evil just had a bad game plan for dealing it, and it's rough.
I actually didn't dislike their approach as much as ZP did, because I've always been of the figure either Mangachu is your number one part or your number 6, and it seemed like they were just going to ignore him. And you can do that sometimes, especially with a player like Mangachu, who will take himself out of the fight. Sometimes you don't even have to worry about it. Mangachu's off doing his own thing a mile away, and you're already fighting 6v5. And as much as I like him, he does that to himself sometimes. We saw it in like game 5 last night.
Towards the end, especially.
Yeah, he started taking himself out of fights anyway. So I think the approach is okay. But it baffled me a little bit, because LG Evil isn't in the same boat as like Complexity, where they just don't have the tools to deal with that Pharah. LG Evil has every tool in their kit to be able to deal with a Pharah, so they were just a little stubborn on it. I think a lot of that might be, and again, I hate trying to dive into the minds of a team, but no, like, we're 7-0. Well, let's play what we want. We'll be able to deal with it. We don't have to make the adjustments. But I mean, eventually they adjusted, but Mangachu has shown time and again that he will take himself out of games, and you can ignore him sometimes.
And just to add on to that for a quick moment too, is that Rogue gave you the blueprint for how to embarrass Renegades. Yeah. It was right there in the Overwatch Monthly Melee, where they just said, okay, we're going to run Ana, we're going to run McCree, and the Ana is going to double team Pharah with McCree anytime he shows his face, and Mangachu just was thrown out of the sky with authority. And then no one else has really taken that approach to punish Renegades quite in the same way. And I get it, not every team has Ana on the same level of Unco or a McCree on the same level of AKM, but at least make the attempt.
Well, you've got Rob and Jake, who at the very least are like the NA versions of those two. They've been playing extremely well.
Yeah, they're plenty capable of doing that. Flame, what's your take on?
I mean, I thought Renegades played well. I thought Ico. I mean, you guys were a little hard on Ico last night. I felt like he played insanely well given his circumstances.
I don't think I was, and for Ico, I don't think I was particularly hard on him at all. I think the thing that I mentioned with the Ico is that I mentioned that I didn't think Saipe was necessarily the problem with that roster.
Oh, I've heard way worse. I mean, I've heard that they have like really weird toxicity issues, but that's another story, right?
Yeah. Well,
that's an NA classic as well. I mean, it's just like I guess my thoughts on the match though were that I don't know why they keep like anytime that Mangachu has to play 76, it's just like an automatic loss. And I mean, I don't mean that in like a rude way, but like he just should not ever play 76. Like if the Gibraltar match was like I think the turning point, because they were up 2-1, I think actually, and then fourth map was Gibraltar, fifth map was Icon, but they got so absolute dumpstered on Gibraltar that I think that it was just demoralizing. Like after that, like J3 was playing super well on Tracer the entire night, and then Gibraltar happened. I think like all of the momentum that he had just went away.
The thing that was troubling to me about Gibraltar is that, again, when you talk about this idea of blueprints and what what teams are doing, and maybe this comes to the idea that teams don't have really good coaching or analysts in the scene, is that we knew going into the cast exactly how LG Evil was going to play Gibraltar, where they were going to hold, and we also saw how to make them look bad on that map, where Rogue, not only they set a blueprint for how to deal with things that Renegades did, but they also set a blueprint for how to work around LG Evil on a map like Gibraltar. And part of that is not fighting where they clearly have practiced and like playing most in the server room. And what do we see there for the first defense coming out from the side of Renegades? they challenge him in the server room in a haphazard way, get blown away, and just momentum just snowballs.
Yeah,
entirely.
it wasn't even like haphazard. It was like with a 76, like the worst
Yeah.
hero in the game to go into that room. And then like I remember Juvenile just charging in like into 6 people into a corner and just I think someone got sleep darted. It was just like the absolute worst case scenario for that fight. Whereas like the obvious way to deal with it is just keep rotating high ground and then let the cart roll backwards. Because the cart was actually rolling backwards the entire time. They had 0 people on the cart.
We'll say about Renegades and just about Ico to touch on that is I feel that their Genji play has been tethered in a large part, but mostly because Mangachu gets the brunt of the healing. He gets focused so hard. And that was the issue with Saipei, that Saipei would still go out and he would get killed because he just didn't have the support. And last night it felt like Ico was on a very short leash. He had Dragon Blade up in a lot of opportune times that he just didn't bust out. Maybe that's because the team didn't want him to, or he felt he didn't want to make a bad looking play on his first time on the team. But he felt I don't think you can play Genji in that style and expect the success that you need out of your Genji player. He held that blade, I think, over 2 maps way too long several times.
Well, no, and you look at when Genji has done well for other teams. For example, when Shadowburn was at his peak, FaZe was built around really giving Genji that power. So you're it's like, go play Genji, try and get results. By the way, we're throwing most of our support to Mangachu. Good luck.
Well, most teams that you're seeing right now are throwing all their supports to Genji. You know, the Dragon Blade does determine, or at least it leads off a lot of the skirmishes that we see, even in the Apex series. So I think that's the most common way, or the common meta in
well, like
gameplay
they
that
have
we're
like
seeing
a weird, they have like weird game like theory, I guess. I don't even know if it's there, if it's just, I mean, I understand that their coaching isn't like there yet or whatever, but like to not run Reinhardt on Eichenwald offense second point, like just seems so hard to execute when you don't have like a Zarya even. Like they're literally running a comp with no stuns or like control, and they make it infinitely harder for themselves, I think, sometimes.
Their Eichenwald second is odd. They feel like their DPS are going to be their initiators every single time, and we've seen them struggle to take that high ground because of it, because they play a little bit alone. I'm thinking even when Saipei was on that team, just crawling up the wall and meeting a Winston up top all by himself. There were so many times.
There was
That's
a
right.
fight yesterday.
That was weird.
There was a fight
That's
yesterday.
true.
I'm sure you guys remember. I don't know what happened, but I think they got they somehow wiped, I think. They somehow wiped them, but then they didn't push them into the spawn door, and they wound up just getting counter wiped, and that was the end. Like they had an opportunity, I think, to take complete control of the high ground, but they just didn't. But that goes back to them not having a Ryan or a McCree or something. And
They also want to play outside of spawn too, and that aggression gets punished sometimes.
There's also the entire idea too, going the last night, where I don't think there's a sample sizes here yet where we can say this definitively, but I do think there is concern over Renegades and their ability to actually play multiple sets of game and do well. They did not do well in Overwatch Monthly Melee when they had to play deeper into night, particularly on day 2. We saw them end up throwing away a series early in Carbon to a reverse sweep. And then here again, they're up 2-1, and their last 2 maps are an utter disaster. So it's hard to think about why that would really be happening. I mean, you have to know more about the internals of the team. But from the outside looking in, that's a bit worrying for Renegades, particularly when esports is going to have very long days, very long sets, especially as you start getting to live events.
Now they got to play at 1 in the morning.
Is that a map type of issue, or you think it's just more of a mental stamina issue?
It could be both, based on how Carbon works, is because we have map pools for map 4 and 5 that just might not be what they're very good at. But still, some of the stuff I'm saying, you have to infer that it might be fatigue. Just it gets sloppier. It's not necessarily map style play, or they didn't win this fight because of this. It's that they're not talking. It looks like they're just flanking solo. It does look just that they get sloppier and sloppier as the night goes on.
Yeah, I mean, when you get world recorded on Gibraltar, I think your entire comp shit. I mean, it's just I know what you're saying. It's just weird. That whole Gibraltar scenario was so avoidable, and they made it look like it was I don't know. They made the worst out of a bad situation. It's
whatever the
world
opposite
recorded.
of making lemonade out of lemons is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when life
Squirting lemon juice.
they literally just opened the lemons and stuck them in their eyes or something like that.
So let's talk about LG Evil. I mean, we've obviously focused a lot on Renegades. So how good is LG Evil? I mean, clearly they're best team here. They'll probably win this event. But how do they measure up against the next tier of teams? Because I think that's the next step. We're waiting for them to see how they do.
Right? That's the
Well, we saw that certainly when we look at the last Overwatch Monthly Melee, they were the only team to take a map off of Rogue. Admittedly, they couldn't do that with the more meta-friendly style. They had to revert to older styles and go in the 4 tank. However, I think when you take a look at how they've been playing and mostly their team history here, unlike other teams in the scene that are filled with crusty old veterans that may or may not have the same practice schedule. I'm saying the word crusty. It's a great word to describe the veterans in the scene. But for LG Evil, they're full of younger players that are really just revolving completely around Overwatch. So I think their potential to improve and start catching teams could be undefined here. We'll get a better idea going into the next Overwatch Monthly Melee, where we haven't announced the teams here, but spoiler alert, LG Evil is going to be one of the teams, Rogue's going to be one of the teams. No big surprise there. So we'll see how they do if there is, in fact, a rematch. And it's going to be interesting because I think they're a team with a lot of developmental potential.
I would agree. I would also caution patience with this team when they do start going up against the higher levels of NA and then Rogue as well. If they lose a couple, don't write them off right away. They're a team that can adjust to how teams play. They can change their style. Like I said, they have every tool in their kit. So right now, I don't think they're necessarily being tested and pushed in the way they need to be. So if they do lose a couple of stinkers, I would give them a little bit more time, give them some leeway, but I don't think they will. Going against Rogue and the AMM coming up, or OMM now coming up, should be great. And I don't know how many more spoilers we want, but it should be a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, they struggle with Renegades, right? At the end of the day, so they'll do fine. It's just, I don't know.
They did, but they're capable. They're completely
they're capable. Is the point, but they have like their days where they definitely don't look as convincing as they have.
And that just takes more, more games against the top teams and getting used to that. But I'm excited. They're definitely the rising team, I think. Out of okay, on a different note, let's talk about Team Liquid, who seems to continue to be struggling here, and oh gosh, so I want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, is this something where they're just going to have to start over here with this team, or is there still more hope? I mean, everybody keeps holding on hope with that roster because there are just some very, very notable people on the roster. What do you guys think?
Team Liquid, they're in the weird spot where you look at them and they're not completely hopeless because they do have brighter spots here. I mean, clearly adding Shatter to the roster was a big upgrade that gave them options that they have previously not had in the past. And you take a look at a player like AZK, he's definitely been playing much, much better in recent times. Overall, though, I mean, there are some weak spots. I will say this, and I don't like putting this on blast that much, but if I'm being objective, I don't think that they can run 3 DPS without the running here. I don't think ID has been good enough when he's been on Pharah. And Liquid's been trying to force this so incredibly hard when they're better when they run 2-2-2 setups and they put ID in an off tank. He's a much better off tank than he is on DPS. And that's not the only issue that the team has. I mean, clearly they've had other issues as well, but it is one of the bigger things that stands out to me right now.
They have consistency issues, and they've had consistency issues for a year or so now, and it does go down to the DPS for the most part. Now, we talk about AZK playing well lately, but that wasn't the case for several months. We talk about ID having a game or two that are very good. I still think there's a lot of good parts for this roster, and if you still gave me the option to start a team today and you said I could pick Mezzer and Hang and I can build around there, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I still think those two are very talented at their positions. It's just the play around them has always been up and down, and when they're on, they can hang with anyone. They're not getting blown out of games by any means, but there's something probably has to change. ID was auditioned off of the team. Enigma was brought in to try to take his spot. That didn't work out, but the core pieces of that team is why I still like to root for them, because I think Hang and Mezzer are a great core to start a team around.
It's like liking Megatron when he was with the Lions and going, wow, I really like this receiver. I see so much potential here. And then he ends his NFL career early because it's just never going to happen.
Well, at least Megatron had, record-breaking seasons and led lots of people to fantasy victories. Right now, it's just like you said, Hex, there'll be some tournaments, some matches where they play, one of the top teams really, really close, and it gets you hopeful. And then the next week, they just lose to somebody that you would think that they could beat, just given how they performed the previous week. It's a lot of that, and that's kind of why I'm bringing up the question. Flame, what do you think?
I mean, I question the Shatter pickup. I'm
Really?
a little bit less harsh on
Okay.
on like the id perspective, because I personally think id's Pharah is very good, and yesterday his Widow was actually pretty good on offense as well. But
Well, day to day though.
yeah, he's day to day. But I mean,
yeah.
I have not seen Shatter put out the same amount of like Genji results that I think he's capable. But again, it goes back to like their comps and stuff. Like I think Mezzer yesterday somehow got like a 4 or 5K at Winston on Eichenwald, and I was like, okay, Mezzer's obviously very, very good, but like with he had like a 3K before he popped Primal Rage, and I actually have no idea how it happened because it was off camera, but like I would build around Mezzer, AZK, and Zhang for sure, but like Rafa's kind of not playing. I know for a fact that Rafa's a quieter person, so I think that that's probably an issue when it comes to like their shot calling. I don't know how good Rafa's like understanding of timings and like alt advantages and stuff is for like his shot calling. If he's shot calling, who's shot calling for that team?
He is shot.
He's shot
So
calling.
it's-
He's definitely shot calling.
So it's like exactly. So like I don't feel like he dies first too early, like too many times, I think, and like Shatter got shut down so hard by the Immortals Annie yesterday. I'm like drawing blank on the name, but
There's definitely points where I look at Rafa and I wonder if I'm looking at Dak from Selfless sometimes because he's just too far out trying to do whatever it is. I mean, there's definitely a temptation to try and do more DPS there. I try and refrain too much from saying the shot calling stuff because we don't know what's going on. I will say for Rafa is that it is a bit of a frustrating problem because you look at Rafa's overall body of work as an FPS player. When he did well in Quake, but he wasn't doing well in Quake just because he was some sort of aim god. There are people that are better than him at specific aiming related things. For him, it's a total package of intelligence, game sense, and the other intangibles that he brought along. So you would think in theory that having a guy like that doing your shot calling has great potential, but it certainly hasn't been realized.
But shot calling for yourself and the game sense in a single player game versus being able to communicate that effectively are miles apart. And I think everyone thought that all these FPS veterans from other games were going to come over and it's going to translate one-to-one. I mean, even the TF2 side of things, we've seen some great TF2 players not live up to expectations. Some of them have, of course, like a lot of this LG Evil team has played TF2, but a lot of the old TF2 veterans, the translation simply hasn't been there. And I think mostly right now you're seeing is that FPS veterans are still hanging on. Those who are putting in the work to stay in Overwatch will hang on. But all these new kids coming up who are just treating Overwatch like their job, the scene is flipping over.
Well, the key there is putting in work, right? Because the best example I can give is that of, say, TF2 veterans you want to look at, a very good example is Shadowburn, where he very clearly put in more time pubbing than most of the FPS veterans that picked up the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Full stop. Yep. And the fruits of that were that he was a FPS veteran who also did his homework, did all that work, and he was rewarded with, for a time, what many people would have argued to be the best Genji in the game. The problem that you have here with a lot of your veterans that are in the game, and why I think a lot of them have failed to have success, is that whether it be for reasons where they are uncomfortable compared to the games where they were undisputed best, or they just have nitpicks about the game, it doesn't allow them to commit to the game with the same level of passion that they had with previous games. So someone might have been a TF2 god, but I was going to avoid putting Clockwork on blast.
Wait. I want to like just point out something. Like, there's a lot of there's a load of TF2 players right now on top teams. You got Mezzer, you got Super, you got Harry Hook, Taimu, like Happy Cool. There's so many. I think NRG is just like not like they're like the outlier of the TF2 skills transferring over. Like that team is just where you go to get worse or something right now. I don't know what the issue is. Like,
that's true for NRG, but there's a very big distinction. The players that are very good in Overwatch that played TF2 were not necessarily super top TF2 players. They weren't legends to the degree that the legends of TF2 have been coming over.
True.
And I think what plays into that is that when you hit legend status and you're used to that and you go to a new game, you're not as hungry as someone like, say, Taimu that did play TF2, but wasn't a legend in that game. So he was still hungry to taste the top.
You have to love the game too.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you have to love the game 100%. Yeah.
So similar to for example, what you see right now in LG Evil, where they did have a TF2 background, they weren't the people you go to and go, man, these guys were just TF2 gods. So they still had this hunger to reach the top that your veterans that everyone thought would dominate the game didn't necessarily have, where they go in and go, I'll play for 4 hours.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like for Super, beating Mangachu is like a great, like, like he just loves that. Like, forget everything else about Carbon. Like, just beating Mangachu last night probably felt like that's what Super is playing for. Like he just likes beating the TF2 players. Like that's a thing. Like that's actually a thing.
Really? So, I didn't realize that was like an under.
Well, I mean, it's like they all know each other. Everyone from TF2 is pretty small. Like
true.
Comparatively, in terms.
I just figured, we had transitioned pretty much over to Overwatch at this point. And that it's
for sure.
Yeah.
It's just you still have like that old
rivalry, so that's that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is that when you're running the trouble, and Clockwork is a good example for this one in particular, just because I thought it was hilarious back in the day, where you go in and you expect to just dominate on raw FPS skill, not realizing that other people from other games also had skill as well. You think about early matchups there. He had a rough time of it going against Cool Matt 69 in the beginning. But if you're going in thinking that you're amazing,
but that was the same team, right? Exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, let me continue though. If you're going in thinking you're amazing and you're judging this new game, and going into this new game, the new game has mechanics that allows a player named Cool Matt 69, which, for as good as Matt is one of the dumbest or most glorious names of all time. And you're getting bodied by someone with that name. Are you going to blame yourself and say that, wow, Cool Matt 69 is awesome, I need to get in his level? Or are you going to go, man, this game sucks? It's easier from a mind
I know where you're coming
perspective
from.
to
It
blame the
makes
game
sense.
instead
Yeah.
of blaming yourself when Cool Matt 69 just, 8-0s you in Widow battles.
I will say, having met Matt, though, he does seem like a cool Matt 69. Just his
Yeah.
whole persona.
He is a cool Matt. I
I
don't
don't
know
know
if
if
this
the
69.
name's gonna fly because there's like a rule for
Oh, is Overwatch League got a rule with
no,
names?
for the China tournament.
Oh, okay,
the,
okay.
the like pre-APEC, whatever, the Banana Culture tournament. There's like a rule that says your name can't be something that can be inferred as like
Can't be 420.
sexual or
Can't be
inappropriate or something.
69. Can't be.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
don't think cops can play in the China tournament right now. So like that's actually a thing. So we'll see if that transfers over to Overwatch League and if Cool Matt has some
the
issues
thing about
there.
Cox, I just think about like different phrases I use all the time. Like, for example, I'll say
terrible.
going in, and you talk about Jake. I might use the phrase just to say, Jake going in hard. For very obvious reasons, I can't say that phrase with
Yeah.
Cox. I don't think it
Well,
would
as
end
long as you
very
don't say
well.
grilled cheese, I think you'll be okay.
Girl, dude, I
I missed
was
that. I
losing
got
my
the
shit
tail
last
end of
night.
that segment, and I was like, I
Oh my
don't. So, there was a segment where I don't. You guys shouldn't Google that. Don't like whenever you have to say that. That's when you know you went.
All right.
No,
well,
actually, it was something. It was the
No,
Roadhog
it was
belly
a
button.
it was a side. Yeah.
It was
side
innocent.
type of thing.
That was
Yeah,
about
it
the
was
world's
innocent.
biggest Audi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was all I got. I just came back for that, and I was like, I don't know what just happened, but.
All right. Well, before we move on,
What we said was energy results. Don't Google that.
Yeah,
That'll
yeah,
make you-
yeah. Well, before we move on, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the folks that listened to the overview on iTunes. If you want to help out the show and you do listen to the podcast either on iTunes or Google Podcasts, you can leave us a 5-star review, and it really, really helps people discover the overview whenever they're searching for Overwatch podcast. I do want to give a shout out to some of the folks that did leave 5-star reviews and a really nice comment. We had a lot this week, so man, keep them coming, guys. A random nickname, Yessie.
JIC.
JISC. Jazz,
JIC.
18, the Manadrew, Serena, and Team Jeebus. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for doing that. And yeah, I don't know what, we got just a bunch last week, so we must have encouraged you guys to do it really, really well last week. So I'm doing the same this week. Go and do that, guys, if you have just a few minutes. Okay, let's moving on. Let's talk about Apex Season 2. And we haven't gotten a chance to talk too much about even just the end results of Group A. So we're going to hold off on Group B just because Group B happened this morning. We all didn't get a chance to really go through it. We'll talk more in depth with it next week. But let's just talk about at least the end of Group A. We talked about Envy being knocked out, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about Runaway, just the success they've had, and then even just the last series, which was Lunatic High and KDU. Overall, what do you guys think, Group A, just how it turned out before we actually get into the specifics?
I mean, first of all, let's just talk about Runaway here, where Runaway not only is destroying teams, but also destroying property in the process. There's
Just
a
the
lot of
lights.
passion on that team.
The lights, yes,
So,
yes.
you never
I
see
love
someone-
him, man. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He went from intense joy to just, what did I do? And then he tries to fix it. He's like, I can fix this. I got this.
No, I agree with you, Jay, man. Like one of my big takeaways though is I like having like hashtag passion in esports. But I was
Yeah.
watching it this morning with ZP, and I just turned to him. I go, Runner is my spirit animal. This guy is
Totally.
amazing to watch. He's like really fun. He's really hype. I love the pink sweatshirts. If I can get a hook up there somehow, if anyone knows anyone to get one of those pink sweatshirts, I will wear the hell out of it. But they were fun to watch, and I think some of that can be missing sometimes from esports, just the fun of it, right? It's games, and they look like they're having a good time. So beyond analysis or how the games turned out, I love Runner. Runner
They're-
fan for
Yeah,
sure.
They're
he's my
cloning
new
Mickey.
favorite. What was it? They're cloning Mickey, is what you said?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, man, Mickey's up there too. It's like it used to be like bubbly Mickey and even reinforced at times, but Runner has taken over the post game. My post game favorite player right now. So hopefully we'll see some more of that. But yeah, any other comments? Flame, just Runaway. Like, what do you think of?
I think that they're the most individually talented per
Yeah.
player, like per position. I think that they have arguably like top tier on every single spot, and it's
And
incredible.
what happened to him early on then? Because Runaway going into that
nothing,
series,
right? Nothing.
Yeah, that's what's
They
crazy.
got
They
new
just didn't-
players, and now they're just playing better. I think you can tell that their teamwork is just there now. I think that whoever their shot caller, I'm assuming it's Runner, is just incredibly intelligent. Like you can tell just by the way that they play, the way that their alts work, their compositions are very well defined. They have like what Lunatic High wants to have but doesn't have, which is like a really, really strong hit scan and like a really, really strong tank on Reinhardt. Like Kaiser outplayed the shit out of Miro's Reinhardt.
Yeah.
That's true.
That was when Hex and I were watching some of the VODs here, and we were looking at that. We're just like, okay, Kaiser is playing incredibly well.
Haxel, dude. Haxel
huge
had
part.
like
Yep.
a
Easily
game of
best
his
Genji.
life. He
Easily.
2v1 Jaehong and Eska like multiple times across multiple maps, and like if your Genji is doing all that, it's crazy. And I mean, I don't like flaming anybody, but like
Your
I
name's
also felt
Flame.
like Lunatic High
I
struggled that
know.
game for sure, and like I felt like Zumba did not give them the best chance to win some fights because I did feel like Lunatic High played well, but their gravitons were so bad in that series actually.
Oh, really? I don't
Across
know.
like 3 or 4 of them, and you only get like 3 or 4 of them per match. So
I feel like Flame's just like reading my Google Doc right now. I had notes this morning. and
Yeah,
you
no,
hit
I was just
all
like,
of them.
wow.
Like definitely Kaiser was just the better tank overall. The Winstons can be comparable because that's what Miro's known as, but even his Winston I felt was better. His Reinhardt is straight up.
well,
just
Stitch,
better.
dude, Stitch
Well,
like
Yep,
Stitch
Stitch.
took like Miro's Winston out of the game. Like Stitch gave him no breathing room, and Stitch's Tracer, like he's so good. That team is just like
Stitch and
Bumper-
Haxall,
even
it's like
Bumper's-
arguably the
Bumper's
best
nuts.
DPS
Well, here's the
combo.
curious thing. If people are wondering, well, what about a key contrast to Lunatic High? I'd say if there is a contrast here, is that you look at both teams, there's a very big, consistent level of performance coming out of Runaway, and they still have huge peaks where one player will just have a huge moment in a fight.
Yeah.
Whereas Lunatic High feels like they can have those very same peaks. I mean, you look at teams like Who Are You, and it's really great. But on the same note, they also have times where people just drastically underperform. I know what actually I'm going to say. Like, Eska's
I mean,
definitely
Eska's
a
the
good
big
example of
topic.
a
I
player
mean,
that
yeah.
has ups and downs, but it also happens across the entire team where they still have those highs, but they also have the lows. And that absolutely costs you over the course of a series.
Well, to Flame's point, though, I think the individual skill for Runaway is enough to overcome team errors. Because, like, one of my big notes of this entire series were, what are these alts? And that was mostly talking about Lunatic High because they mismanage alts constantly. But Runaway did a couple times too, but even when they did, they had individual performances bring them back. And as we mentioned earlier, like Haxel on Eichenwald had a huge individual play, and then, you know, Kaiser playing individually well. So even when they made the mistakes, which honestly, for watching the Korean tournaments happened way too much in this series, alt-wise, it was just a mess.
Yeah, it was weird too
Well-
because it was weird because Runaway would make alt mistakes, like they'd like sound barrier for no reason or something. But then like Lunatic High would like counter with like a equally bad sound barrier immediately. And then suddenly you're like, well, that was a mistake, but it didn't matter because they got like
Right.
rewarded.
Okay,
for
well,
it.
first of all, Lunatic High, clearly a big fan of the hold my beer meme as far as that goes. Like, hold this, I got this.
Yeah, exactly.
The second thing for Eska is that some people are getting too critical, saying, why is Monty going in on Eska so much? And I went into objectively going, well, I heard this. Let's see if it's too harsh. And then you see the end of Nambani where
He just
Eska pulls off the
he
world
just
famous,
owns.
the reverse ice wall. And it's just like, wait a second. The ice wall is to keep them out, not protect you as you retreat away from your point.
Right.
And then,
right.
and then it finally ends where you have May fully off the point in a corner by the health pack, eating a rocket for breakfast. And, you know, Monty exclaims, Eska is doing nothing. Well, when you're a May that had that level of set in that particular fight, yes, you have done nothing in a rather spectacular way.
Like I remember too, because I put out my VOD analysis on Oasis, and I swear to you, on Oasis, the first 2 rounds, he must have been 0-7, like on Oasis. And I was just saying there, like, okay, Eska, like you need to get a kill. Like your team needs you to get a kill. And people were like, why is he flaming Eska so much? He's playing fine. His job is to protect Jaehong, but like meanwhile, Jaehong's just getting killed immediately after he does. And it's like, I don't know. I think that they can bounce back for sure. I mean, Eska is very
I
talented.
mean, we're
like,
talking about comparing Eska to the other DPS players in Apex, and the
Yeah.
you know, like we're talking to Haxel and Stitch. I mean, that's you know, you have to be at the elite level to be able.
So like
to
at
keep
MLG,
up
there
with
was like
that.
this conversation, right, about like how there's no star players or something on Fnatic.
Oh.
Like I honestly think you could take like any of the DPS players on Runaway and just like instantly throw them onto Fnatic or something. And like it would any player could be like that player. Because like to ZP's point, like Lunatic High has Jaehong, who will sometimes just win like a 2v1 as Anna. and you're like, what is
Yeah.
happening? Or like Miro's
You
Winston will
Miro,
go off.
yeah. Mhm.
Or you have like who are used Genji, who like again will have incredible games. But honestly, for Runaway, like any of them, literally like Runner, I think like the Lucio was having multi-kill fights like by himself. Like
Sometimes you
it's
feel the need to
insane.
drop the beat and drop your sound amplifier in some space.
I mean, I just question: do Korean Anas really need protection? Because from everything I'm seeing,
Seriously,
you need protection from Korean Anas.
They kill Genjis
Yeah,
like
they all
nothing,
through there.
man.
Well,
It's
that's a
like,
good point too, because I do specifically remember them get like who was it? Is it Shine? Who's their Anna on Runaway?
on Runaway. Yeah, it's Shine. It's
I am
Shine.
terrible with names in the
No,
tournament.
it's
I have it in
Shine.
front of
It's
me, in
Shine.
which case I know
It's Shine.
the history.
I think it's Shine, but Shine or is it? I think it's Shine, but whatever.
It's Shine. It's Shine.
They were he was getting kills on Jaehong, and you're like, can't heal yourself. You're anti-healed. Like it's like that. Think about it. Like they were playing really well. I don't know. They're the team to beat right now. I think in some weird way they might struggle. I mean, they obviously only won 3-2, and it was like a very very close series. And Lunatic High definitely could have played better. I think like Zumba in particular could have easily turned up his game to what he normally does. So they could have lost, but they're on a hot streak right now, and they're feeling really good.
It's good you mentioned Zumba because I remember just watching that and noticing that a lot of times when you had LH doing very well, it was Zumba coming in, getting a very good initiation to set up everyone else on his team. And that's where you'd see someone like Eska, who maybe has had trouble getting early pickoffs, certainly not having as much trouble getting cleanup once the fight is in
Yeah,
progress.
for sure. And and like hitting pulse bombs is way easier, obviously, if you're doing it into a graviton.
Right. Well, that's something where you should hit, although we have had notable times where people have decided to throw it into a pillar instead. So it's still no guarantee.
Really?
It happens.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it happens sometimes. All right, so moving on to Lunatic High and KDU ended up playing the second place match. And speaking of great Anas, I mean, I think Lucid had some crazy plays during that matchup, but unfortunately for KDU, he might have been the only player that was playing super well. Because
Lucid
Lunatic
had
High,
homing darts that game.
They
They were
did? He was
they got
just
3-0'd, but he was literally
insane.
like he must have been like 10 for 10 or something on the sleep darts
Yeah.
onto Dragon Blades or whatever.
The consistency of sleep darts is actually just scary, and Lucid had a great series when you take a look at what he had there. And it's also worth noting too that when the rest of your team is doing bad and you still have a great performance where you can go, everyone was having a rough day except you. That's actually meaning you're having a phenomenal day above and beyond because teammates create opportunities for you. They go back to say the Eska example and talking the idea where he has very good cleanup, but has had issues with getting initial kills. If your teammates are getting people lower or putting themselves in good positions, that frees you up to reap the rewards there. So if the rest of your team is having a rough day and people still walk away going, wow, you had a really good game, it actually means you had just a
phenomenal
fantastic
game.
day.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
it goes back
Exactly.
to I don't know, like that side of the bracket was interesting because when the playoffs started, I said number 1 was Lunatic High, number 2 was Luxury Watch, and then 3 was Kongdu Panthera, and I had like 4 as Envy. Like I feel like Envy seriously underperformed in their lower bracket game. Like I feel like they should have been able to deal with
Envy's
Uncia way
handicap, though,
easier.
Here's the problem with Envy is that Envy does not have the positional flexibility that you need at this point in time, period. Because
But
what
like,
worked
did you
out
watch?
for-
Did you? I remember like Taimu played defensive tracer on Kings Row for some reason in like game 5, and I was thinking to myself like, if he's on McCree, maybe this game is completely different. Like they could have won, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. But like
Well,
I was never really
that's-
impressed with Uncia. It was more or less where I was going in terms of like.
I do remember that, and it's also it's not they're not the only team in the scene to do that. By the way, McCree is in this weird where you, for example, we talked a little bit about Mortals earlier, where Mortals has this thing where Grim Reality makes a huge name for himself on McCree, does well in the Winter Premier Finals, and then he's just like, actually, I don't want to play this hero anymore. Well, like Taimu has gotten into that trap at times as well, where he decides, I'm just randomly not going to play McCree. It's like, no, this is a hero that you do well, you are a specialist, and you can play in these times and still find a way instead of just throwing it to the 7 wins.
Yeah.
They did try new things though that game. That was an interesting series. I think that they had like Harry Hook on Zarya for a majority of it, and like
Well, they just.
Taimu goes like
Well-
Winston, and when Taimu's on Winston, I just get so mad.
Back to my original point.
I think we all get mad when time moves on Winston.
Envy doesn't have a great option for strong projectile DPS,
Right.
and that's just unacceptable at this point. You need to be able to play those compositions. You need to be able to go, actually, we're going to run a world-beating Genji comp, and they don't have that. And I remember back when Tailspin left the team and they picked up Mickey, I remember exact contours back on the oversight when I was talking to Monty Thor. I said, for this meta, this works out really well. But in the long term, I don't know if they can actually find a good projectile DPS player to fill this or can find it from within their team. And I still don't think they're going to be able to find it. I think that someone from Envy is almost certainly going to be cut to make room for a new projectile DPS player.
Like, I don't disagree with that sentiment. I do think though that like they didn't give themselves the best opportunity to win that series regardless. Because the Lunatic High match, they got 3-0'd, but it wasn't like a dumpstering. It was like a pretty close 3-0 that probably could have went to 5
matches
games
that were
if,
close.
Like,
2 matches
if you
were
like,
close.
yeah. If you, well, I mean, Hanamura is Hanamura, whatever. They got dumpstered on Hanamura. But my point being that like, if you take out the 2CP or something like that, could have easily been like a 5-game series or something if you put the maps in a different order. So it's.
I was gonna say, well, sure, it could have, but I'm just going to note that if they think about what they could have done with the overall level of teamwork, coordination that Envy has, the things that they're good at, if they could flex in good projectile DPS.
Yes.
It's a testament to how good they are that they're able to get as far as they did without having that option. But this is where they can't go into another major tournament and not have that whole plug.
In Overwatch, you want to look at rosters that are not going to be patch dependent, which is why we're always talking about, well, they just grabbed the best player, not necessarily a tank, not necessarily support or DPS. He's the best player available for them right now. I think C9 grabbing Gods was a good pickup as he's really versatile. But you look at some of the top NA teams, they've got 3-4 people who can play nearly everything. As LG Evil, above all teams, they play everything. So I think with how quick Overwatch changes, patches will change the meta nearly every single time. That's been the history of the game. Every time a patch changes, the meta almost completely changes. So you have to be resistant to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in my eyes though, my like takeaway or what my perspective on it is that like they're not going to switch to like a Pharah midway through this tournament when like they have to win. I would expect. Back to the cutting people thing. I would say that they have time to get better at Pharah, to get better at Genji.
So to Envy's, just give him props for trying and getting creative and trying to figure out a solution given just the pieces that they have. But it is getting to the point. Overwatch is quickly getting to the point where you have to have the players that can play the optimal meta at any given point. And what they were trying to do, and it could have been pulled off if literally Taimu was just unbelievable for like 3, 4, 5 straight games. And as amazing as Taimu is, he can't be amazing like that many times in a row. Like it's just not possible, to be honest.
There's a thing in sports here too, though, is that you don't need the hero play if you're playing consistently good up until that point. It is great that Taimu had moments, of course.
But they rely on him, though.
They clipped where it's like, oh, you've just killed a Genji point blank to win a fight. Fantastic. You did that. That's great. But in an ideal world, you're playing things solid enough that you don't need those crazy plays to win successfully. It's one of those things where you look at it, say, sport like basketball, you'd much rather win a game with a 20-point lead than winning because you hit the impossible shot at the buzzer. So, I mean, for Envy, it's sort of endemic there where you could go, wow, Taimu was heroic here, really brought it through. But what problems do you have in the team where you need Taimu to have that performance multiple times to keep them in it?
It's an issue. So I guess my question now to you is, do you think that they're going to get dumpstered by NA teams?
No.
And I think that's my mentality too. And I think that's why I don't see them needing to change anything. Because like you mentioned change, like I'm a little defensive on that point. Because I'm at the point where it's like, okay, Owls start, like let's say Owls starts like next week. Do they care?
But they're not measuring themselves against the NA teams though.
But they will be at the end of the day.
Are you happy to have a roster that their Genji and Pharah is suspect on? Just overall, take the name Envious off of it. Are you happy with a roster that can't run a Genji and Pharah?
I mean, well, no, but my point, but like the counter to that though is, are you happy with Renegades where you can't run 76 because like you're?
Well, no, you're not.
No, that's not the question.
Like it's hard, right? Like
those are parallel logic lines.
Exactly. So it's like you have to find you.
But we're not saying the NA teams are better in this case. We're saying that for Renegades, you're right. They're too dependent on running Mangachu there. Yeah. For Envy, they're too dependent on not having projectile. You want to have a situation.
Hold on, let him finish first. Go. DP,
no, I was just finishing and saying you want to have a situation where you can run everything. Yeah. You don't want to get hemmed into a situation where you're stuck in style because if the meta changes that is really against that style, you're done. You're going to be terrible.
Agreed.
Or if just teams figure out a way of dealing with that and going, well, we're going to run something here that normally doesn't work, but it's going to work against this team because they don't have an option for it, then you're also screwed. So you absolutely need to have viable options at all major ways of playing Overwatch. You can have specialties Absolutely.
Yeah, an option is to pick up another person on your roster. Like Envy could pick up another player and just have 7. You know, maybe that is the Genji and Pharah player.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that teams aren't taking them to Dorado and just playing Symmetra, to be honest, with you, and just spamming orbs into their faces, because it should work in my eyes.
Wow.
But,
okay. Yeah.
No, I'm just serious, because like there's compositions that lose to Pharah and they just don't run Pharah. So like you should try to run some compositions that would beat a Pharah comp or whatever.
Well, right now, for example, when you take a look in game plan here, and this is why you do want to be able to run everything. If you're looking at a team like LG Evil that's been playing exceptionally well on the NA side, they got an Achilles heel right now, which is that they don't do Pharah well. So if you can run a good Pharah option against them, that has to be your immediate go-to here until they prove they can deal with it. And that's game planning. And now if Envy was going in, Envy could probably brute force LG Evil in their current state, but they would be able to take them out that much easier if they could go, we have a great Pharah option. We're going to slam a top-tier Pharah down their throat.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about team compositions too. Like the teams that don't run any stuns and then they try to win maps.
I still think like Envy, if they're even looking at themselves and how they measure up to NA, that is just the wrong thing to do. Like they need to be. But
that's their success point in the future, is my point.
It is, but still, they need to be looking even beyond that, because your success point for being, trying to match up against Korean teams, it should beat the NA teams right now. So I don't think you should. I think you're short-sighting yourself if you do that, because then you'll be satisfied.
Because I would argue that you don't, like, if you're playing, like, if you compare it to sports, like if you're the best basketball team in China, you don't care how you match up in the NBA. Like it's kind of like, that's kind of where I think it would go. But maybe they'll care. But I'm saying, like, if you're looking at Overwatch League in a vacuum, which in general is probably going to be the future, then they might as well.
I mean, are you looking at the dog, though? That is a doggo in the
Someone just knocked on my door. Hold
on. People are traveling in that blizzard? What?
I know. No, the dog's staying inside more like anything.
Well, the dog is staying inside, but someone is at his door. That means that a vehicle has driven to his house and all.
That makes more sense.
Flame's probably a jerk like me that the moment the weather turns terrible, I just always deliver food and get food delivered.
Need shelter. Need shelter from the snow.
I feel kind of like a jerk for it, but
yeah,
some real projection there. But well, I was gonna go back onto the other point here, but now I'm just gonna.
Well, I mean, so to kind of sum it up, Runaway and Lunatic are moving on, and a lot of people are surprised that Runaway was able to take it, just because I think a lot of folks thought Runaway was one of the worst teams going into this, at least folks that might have just been watching from the surface. So Runaway, I feel like is the hottest team, and to be honest, they're like my favorite team right now to watch. So I can't wait to see them in the next round after Group B gets figured out.
And we never even touched on the idea of how their pink sweaters might be giving them energy.
Yeah, could be. Could be.
So
all right, well, why don't we move on to some of the news that's been going on, since we saved news for the end of this time around. And we're going to start off.
Top news story coming in here. Notable streamer Flame lost outside in the snow. Breaking news. This is hot off the press, guys.
The views, man. The views. It's amazing.
Well, Flame would just evaporate the snow because he's mostly made of salt, right? So like that's the direct counter to snow.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
All right, breaking news. Man lost in snow, finds way back.
Oh, he's back. Exactly.
People have no manners, man.
Who was that?
This lady is like, I need you to move your car so we can plow out the rest of the spots. But like, my car doesn't move, man.
It's like, what do you expect me to do? There's snow around my car. Oh my god!
She's like, I'll go get a shovel. I'll shovel you out. I'm like, okay.
All right, well, we're moving on to news here, and first bit of news is that we've got a new sponsorship, and a new sponsorship from a very big team, NRG. Events DC will now be sponsoring the big team that we all know. And let me show you the article. And it was titled as DC sponsoring them, so everybody was like, "Oh my god, how does the Capital like sponsor them?" But in reality, it's the actual events DC organization. So that includes, just this giant arena. I think it's like $65 million arena or something that they're going to be building or whatever for, and it's going to be specifically for esports, which is like, oh wow, okay. I always thought that esports would start off with just existing, stadiums and for sports, and just kind of work from there. But this sounds like an esports first type of initiative. And
well, is Is Events DC a private organization or is it state sponsored? Because I want to know if I can complain about my
Well-
tax dollars being spent.
Oh my
District
God!
sponsor.
If we're paying tax
DC is
money for
not a
this,
state.
oh
DC
my
is not
God.
a
Well, the
state.
district, you know what
Yeah,
I mean.
I do know, but I just have to be that guy.
Well, you don't have to be.
But I want it to be.
'Cause
I mean,
I read it
it's
as,
not.
like,
I
'cause I
don't
know,
think
like,
it's not sponsored by the actual city. I don't believe it's. See, it
But I
says-
mean, is events like part of their tourism board? You know, because I've
Oh.
heard inklings of like cities and
I don't know if it's
municipalities
private, but-
wanting to sponsor teams and stuff.
Oh, definitely.
No, I
We've
think
seen
it's the
that.
same.
We've definitely.
I think so. I want to say the money is coming from,
There's
but
gotta
it's
be
not.
the-
But like the article is like
What's-
very what's the word, sensationalist. Like it's not an esports stadium. It's a WNBA basketball stadium that's going to be used as like a
Oh.
Washington Wizards practice facility. That's just going to happen to have really well networked stage or whatever, or just really good network capabilities to put up computers.
That's also that actually just makes me ask questions on more broad level here. Why do they have an arrangement with the WNBA team doesn't use the NBA stadium?
Would you
may-
know
may-
the answer to that question?
No, I don't because I mean maybe I just don't look too much beyond my own backyard, but I know that the Lynx up in Minnesota.
It's true, it doesn't
use
make sense.
Like they use the same arena that the Wolves are using, so it's like.
It's the same organization, so it's just like
well, I
they should
understand
be.
the same-
Well, I mean,
They should be
like,
using
you
the
view
same
it,
thing
So you
too.
view it from a like investor standpoint, right? Like, okay, you're Shaq, and you're like, okay, we can put money into this stadium. We'll use the stadium. We'll get really good deals doing esports events at the stadium. We can rent this to big events that want to do esports events, and we can like also partner with this basketball team who's only going to use it for X amount months of the year, and the Washington Wizards will use it for practice. The WNBA will use it for matches, and then we'll also have this ability to.
I mean, if that's the case, then it is the city, right?
Oh my god!
Because the city. Oh
If I disappear.
my God. All right.
All right. Well,
Play-
actually, guys, we got the news
See-
ticker coming in here. Apparently, local man as with dog has murdered his neighbor. As apparently there was shoveling snow going on. We don't really know. We just know that a shovel was the murder weapon.
Flame about to
details
flame
breaking.
his neighbor is basically what's happening. But yeah, so this is. I mean, typically with stadiums, I mean, the city is involved. You know, with
Yeah.
NBA stadiums. So maybe this actually is
The
directly
city
involved.
probably
With,
built it if
DC.
it's a traditional
Yeah.
stadium.
yeah. So maybe you're right, Hex. And Events DC might be just part of
Well,
a group.
So
or
that
a
also
section
no.
of it.
The only reason I ask is so in chat, like my tax dollars went to this whenever energy plays poorly or something like
well,
that.
DC is used to getting taxation without proper representation. So this is just more par for the course.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
Have a
but-
congressman or something.
Oh my
I guess the question, talking about Overwatch in particular, the question is, all right, is this the Washington, DC NRG team for Overwatch League? Are they going to have to move there, Seagull and crew?
All
It
signs
seems
would point to
likely.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
right?
don't know,
Okay.
of course. We don't know anything. We're in the dark as
I
much
mean, we're
as everyone else.
we're
with
starting to
Overwatch League news.
and we're starting to see teams migrating to different cities right now.
Yeah.
So here's the main thing for me about this is that it's a very good trend for esports that you have finally teams going in and identifying with regional entities. And this is just another part to that trend. And it's excellent. And I'll use my own father, for example. My father is a diehard Boston sports fan. Anything Boston sports he's interested in. I cannot get him in his current form to really take a look at esports. But if something like Overwatch League comes out and there's a team based in Boston,
Yeah.
I can get him to have a cursory interest in that because his loyalties are to his region first, and he
Yep.
gets sports teams off of that, then vice versa. So the fact that we're getting into that means that you're inherently expanding the base that esports can reach, and that's a very good thing. So all NRG jokes aside that you can make, or DC jokes, because both just lend themselves to many just fun commentary that we can waste a lot of time on. This is good for esports. Full stop.
Always.
Alright.
I think a lot of people outside of esports or even inside of esports underestimate the traditional aspect of sports and regionalism, just how
Oh,
deep
absolutely.
it goes. Because I know both ZP and I were big fans of sports, and then still even going towards esports, we still root for the teams we rooted for because of the region that we're in or
Yep.
growing up. And then once you have those teams established, I think the goal ultimately is to move esports away from having player identifications, because even in the NFL, you root for the helmet. It doesn't matter who's wearing that helmet, but you root
Right.
for that team specifically. And so that would help with some of the issues with roster volatility or whatever. When a player leaves, maybe you follow that player, but you're still following that organization. And a lot of that comes with the regional ties and things like
The
that.
reason-
It also
the-
creates regional rivalries.
The reason that you're just loyal to the helmet is because they don't allow them to take off the helmet sex. So it's, that's
Well,
one of the reasons. No, but to your
Well,
point,
then
yes.
you really have to focus on the helmet because now that we're getting to the era where now you can sponsorships on jerseys that they're
Yeah,
testing out.
yeah.
If you don't focus on the helmet, you're going to be focusing on McDonald's or, God forbid, Arby's. But hey, meat out at $10. Let's go.
Oh
It
my
also
gosh,
creates-
please not.
It
Please don't do
creates
that.
rivalries without those teams even playing against each other, because the moment Washington has to play a Philadelphia team, already people are going to be like, we don't like them. We don't like these regions don't like each other. If Chicago has to play Cleveland, similar, or St. Louis, you know, and those regional rivalries are already built in. You're already tapping into an established passion with people if you start putting teams in cities like that.
I will say though that given their current performance and their propensity to disappoint fans in Overwatch here thus far, I will say that Washington, D.C. is an interesting city for NRG, but they definitely would have had a better thematic fit in Overwatch if they were with Cleveland. I had to get that out.
Okay. Interesting. No, but so we have NRG in DC. We've got Renegades in Detroit. We've got Rogue
Miami
now in Vegas.
Misfits. Miami Misfits. very
Miami
likely
Misfits,
incoming.
which is going to be right close to here. And then who's got LA right now? Oh no, then we got Raleigh or just North Carolina. We got Envy, right? And
Yeah, it'd be like Charlotte, Envy, you'd think. something
yeah,
like that.
and then maybe MJ gets on that. That'd be
Or maybe
Oh,
they just go Carolina, like the Panthers, where they just combine both states and call it
Oh, yeah.
Carolina.
I hate it when they do that, man. But
So the LA thing is interesting because there's plenty
that's the
of
most.
there's
That's
plenty
the
of
most
orgs that-
valuable one, though.
Play.
That's the most valuable one, right? Like the.
Well, that's why I'm saying there's plenty of organizations I'd love to claim. If you get
Mhm.
into the idea of franchising and all the rest, presumably you're going to need to write a bigger check to get
Right.
the LA region. so-
Boston Splice. LA being the most valuable is also going to be the most expensive too. So organizations
yes.
have to balance those types of things. I want to know who's coming to Chicago. It's my city, and
I will
no
say-
word yet.
I will say this, that if it is Boston Splice Overwatch League in their current incarnation, that at the very least, my dad would be trained to root for Boston Splice because all his years of rooting for the Boston Red Sox losing pre-2004 would prepare him for being a Boston Splice fan.
Oh
so
my god.
that would be a thing.
Going hard, man.
Exactly.
One of those days.
That's exciting. This is, again, I feel like it's leading up to, what we're about to see with the Overwatch League, and so I just can't wait until I can just bring my son to, an actual event, like a local event in Miami and Misfits against whoever, and it becomes a regular thing, and we can have actually stands packed. I mean, it's gonna be some empty stadiums for a while, I think, until
As
it
someone
gets
who-
going.
As someone who just went to my first esports event in the last year, there was something indescribable about it. Even beyond a sports event, there's something about everyone in the same room loves the same thing, which is still kind of a niche thing, and it's just this energy there that's incredible.
And let's just talk
Flame-
about other breaking news here. Flame escaped the police after his recent
There's
murder
like a
with a shovel.
mob. No, there's literally like a mob of because I live in a townhouse community, right? So like there's like literally like 30 people outside all shoveling at the same time and like orchestrating a really big car thing so that like they can plow all the parking spots. But I don't like driving my car in the snow, so I just like had a miniature
You're
heart
not a
attack.
team player.
Flame, I'm just glad that you're
He's
not
the-
out
he's the
there
only car
helping
that's
right now
gonna be
because
so stressed
right now.
you're
I'm
not
actually so
very
stressed.
Flame. You're not in very good physical condition right now. It's not like you hit the gym and would be way more efficient at shoveling snow than at least.
Well, I pay an
Listen,
HOA fee for them to do it, right? Like that's fine.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
That's fair. At that point, you are fully justified.
Yeah. I guess Flame, you kind of missed most of that. But any last thoughts on the DC and NRG thing?
Well, so I don't know how bad the turnout will be. I guess it depends on when they time it. I think that DC. I mean, I just looked up an article. And it's not a very positive article. It's like I just googled like DC WNBA arena, and like the article title is DC to spend tens of millions on WNBA arena in city's poorest neighborhood. So like that doesn't sound like a good spot for an esports event, in my opinion. But I don't know.
We're
It's-
building up. We're building
Well,
up.
I mean, I like that. I would rather them. I guess
It's like
in
SimCity
my
when you
eyes-
throw
my
down a
eyes, you put-
stadium, like in that section that has like the lower housing, and then it builds to these hotels, right?
Well, no one wants to live by a stadium, so inherently
Exactly.
those end up being like
Uh,
low valued.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Well,
Ironically, we are right now living by a stadium. just
Mile
for
High
full
is about a
record.
mile that away.
about a mile.
but it's-
left.
Mile high, mile
Well, it's
away.
not what
Yeah.
it's not Mile High anymore. But like, no, you always build these stadiums on the outskirts of a city, and that's generally where the poorer neighborhoods are going to be anyway. And the heart of the city is where all that high rises are.
Well, yeah, I mean, my point being that like I'd rather them put them in like college areas because you could easily fill a stadium with college kids. I think.
That's
It's a
true.
really good
So I
point.
think like
Yeah, that
Boston,
is a good
whoever
point.
gets Boston, I guess Splice is looking like a Boston city right now. Like that's gonna be a very good spot, I think, for esports. I think like anywhere like that has a lot of college activity will be
That's a good point.
easy.
Well, just in general too, Boston is a very good sports town. Period. You have
They're
some of
hardcore,
your-
man.
I mean,
Hardcore.
certainly they've had more success to where most regions of the country now hate them. But even back when Boston was more lovable losers, as far as team performance goes,
When the balls
you-
weren't deflated.
yeah, when the balls weren't deflated, before Tom Brady's beautiful visage descended upon Foxborough like
Big
some
Poppy.
sort of divine intervention. Right. Before all of that, Boston still has it's an incredible fan base. And I say this
Yeah.
just because I've lived with my dad, of course. He was my dad. Just knowing what he
You
knows
lived
about
with your-
Boston sports.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
either way. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I've gotten this derailed here, probably because people keep interjecting. Anyways, but Boston is a phenomenal sports town. It really is. It's
It is.
great. You have an amazing fan base there, and I think for esports, they'll also take root as well for whatever team might be. in
You
Boston.
can tap into people's existing fan bases even with sports they don't like just by plopping a team in that city. And you see it with minor league hockey all over the place, even MLS teams, people who don't like soccer. It doesn't matter. The city name is what they're going to see. So you can get success just by tapping into the passion of pre-existing sports fans. If you can sell it more as a sport than what's currently happening.
And the last point about it too is I think it's really important that at least one of the destinations. I mean, this might be on the low end, but at least one of the destinations will be a crazy success. Just so there is some kind of model to look at, or there is some kind of momentum.
Yeah.
Like the last thing we want is just like across the board, there's just okay attendance. We want one city just to be like, I don't know, fill the stadium maybe halfway, or something
I
pretty
think finals will
impressive.
always be big. It's a question of like when they start doing that like home and away thing that they had planned, and maybe in 2018 we
That's
can
a
get there.
while.
But
yeah, I
like,
think that's a while.
as far
before
as
we
as
get
far as
that.
Overwatch League having like TI sized finals, I think it's completely possible.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, why don't we move on? We've got a tournament that's been announced too this week, the Overwatch Pit Championship, and there's some EU love here too, as well as NA region too. So we've got open qualifiers as well as invited teams to this tournament. $15,000 prize pool, and here I'm going to give you a list of at least some of the invited teams here, and a lot of these NA teams are playing in Carbon Series right now, so there might be a bit of overlap, I guess, when this is happening. Maybe the open qualifiers, will happen first, and then by the time that's done, maybe Carbon Series will be wrapping up. But definitely some of your favorites there. And then we got the EU region, which, gosh, man, it's about. I mean, they've been dying for anything, where they can actually get a chance to play matches and showcase themselves. So it was very, very much welcomed. What do you guys think? The pit. This is announced by the One Game Agency. You guys
The
know
one
too
game
much?
agency. I guess they have the Pit series. Right? Pit.
Yeah.
Now they're Watch Pit. Pit all in capitals. That's their branding.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a very good tournament. It will clearly fill a lot of the gaps that you have between Carbon into April, and then who knows what comes in after that. But this is going to be a good benchmark for a lot of teams. There's also open qualifiers, so you'll get to see perhaps a few surprises come out of that. And it's going to be a proving grounds because clearly if the teams are involved here, not every team is going to live up to their billing. Some teams that are established are going to perhaps go down in flames and not really live up to their reputation. So this is going to be a good temperature check on where the Western scene is overall, what teams are doing really well, what teams are perhaps no longer worth their sponsorships. We'll get a mix of everything.
The only Western team I really want to see play is NRG because I watch so much Western Overwatch that I'm pretty caught up on everything. But one, I love open brackets. I think that's awesome. We haven't done those since like Gosu Gamers Weeklies, and I think teams are really dying for chances to make names and come up in the scene, which in the open bracket is perfect for that. And I want to see more Europe. I try to watch every European tournament that's on, even though the hours aren't there, but those guys need a tournament very badly. It's been too long for them. Is NIP still up there? You got Chavs, who just got sponsored by Hammers Esports. So those are the things I'm looking forward to most. I mean, I watched so much NA Overwatch that I could predict it in my sleep, but I think NRG and NA and watching the open brackets I hope those are broadcast, to be honest. I would love to watch some open tournament stuff.
Flame, how about you?
Open brackets a little it's good, but it's also very high intensity matches, I guess, because it's single limb. And I heard Fnatic's going to be in the NA bracket. That's rumors. I'm not like console on that, or if
okay.
I don't know if that's true, but you have teams like Selfless and Fnatic right now, who I would assume like you would expect to be like the 1-2 punch of that bracket. But depending on how they get sided or placed or whatever, like that could wind up, they could meet each other early or something.
They
and,
weren't
like,
invited. Like,
Yeah,
if they're gonna be
I'm just
playing,
looking at
like,
that right now.
what?
How do you
What?
not kick the tires on Fnatic there? That
well,
is
it has something to
very
do
strange.
with, I think, like the Korea, right? Like I think that these invites went out while they were still doing Apex, so
Oh, they
like,
didn't know
there was
if they were
probably a lot of
available.
tentative
Okay, right.
yeses and stuff, so it makes sense in that regard. But I think that the open bracket's going to be like a dogfight.
Well, it's
Yeah.
worth noting here, though, as far as the teams goes, that Envy, of course, is now out of Apex, and they could theoretically play in this, but it does look like they are taking this tournament off.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Be good. It'd be good for them to take one off. I just kind of get the batteries charged, get some practice in, because they've been over there for so long now.
Oh, Selfless is in the open bracket though. I feel so bad for the teams who won't be able to leave their spawn. I feel so bad for them.
Oh.
Ouch.
But you don't feel bad for Complexity, who it happens to.
No,
but-
Complexity
I know.
collects paychecks and their names are on their shirts. I don't feel bad for guys who would
Well,
still challenge their spawn.
Tempo's on this list though, apparently, which is interesting.
What list are you looking at? You're looking
on
at
the
the
list of signups or invites.
No
I-
signups.
Yeah, they can't be.
Someone linked it
invited.
in chat.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Well, I think so. I mean, it's a good chance for the Tempo team, of course.
Toronto Esports, Kurosaki Daiichi High.
Good teams. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but
No, I mean
There's-
not that
Yeah, I'm not-
one,
I'm
not
not
that
actually
one in
sure.
particular. But
Yeah,
it's
I was
just
like, what?
I don't know if they are. I don't actually know that team, but no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see. You know, we talked about
Alright,
LG
they're
Evil.
back again.
I want to see LG Evil play against Rogue again, and
Do we know how many teams come out of qualifier?
It's 2.
It's only 2. Wow,
yeah,
okay,
two
so
qualifiers, 10 direct invites, and then 2 qualifiers into 2
All right,
groups.
so if
Yeah.
a team comes out of there that we haven't heard of that didn't make out at qualifiers, and already what Tempo, Fnatic, and Selfless in qualifiers,
Right.
someone's already going home early. Like probably Tempo at this point because we haven't seen them play, but that's crazy.
You never know. It's a single limb situation, and
Yeah.
you know anything can happen in a single limb.
Well, it's single limb too, and I doubt it's any more than best out of 3. So you don't have
Yeah.
a whole lot of margin for error there. All it takes is one
Still
good,
good.
one good full hold that
Yeah.
comes out of nowhere that really just shatter your dreams.
Yeah, and so it'll be good. The open qualifiers start tomorrow, I believe. Like it's let me see. I forget if it's EU
And-
first or if it.
And I don't think the open qualifiers are broadcasted.
don't
I
think
think,
so.
well, I think they're doing a weird thing where they're doing the first part of it up to a point, and then they're broadcasting the qualifiers after the open.
As it gets
brackets are
closer,
done.
yeah, after
Yeah.
it gets
Yeah.
closer, right? We'll see who maybe keep up with it by, I don't know, maybe following them on Twitter or coming to the site. It's it's overwatchpit.com, and you can kind of see if your favorite teams are getting through the qualifiers. But
CLG 's
exciting.
gonna play too. All right.
No.
CLG
Well,
is
for
playing?
CLG,
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
CLG's been an interesting case as far as how the. Let's just say I think they've done some promotional tactics that haven't made sense with this team. I'm curious to see how
It's
the
been
actual
odd.
team plays, but
They're definitely hitting the PR hard from the
Well-
announcement to some of the posts you
Well,
see, but like
You gotta win, man.
Maybe hit the tournaments. A little
Yeah,
harder.
maybe try winning. You know, it's like, okay.
I mean, there haven't been that many things for them to come out and win. I mean, I don't even think I need to double check. They did play in, I think, one of the Rival K tournaments and got second, which is all right. But
Yeah.
before that, it's sort of they do the announcement MLG Vegas, and frankly, no, if they were trying to pump up the crowd that was there, the crowd had no idea who the players were.
Right.
So you just had dead silence. Could have heard a pin drop when they announced the CLG roster.
That announcement was esports, even by esports standards. That was
And then you have the entire thing where they do the PR video of like, here's the members of CLG doing, I think it was,
Would you rather?
yeah, would you
Would you,
rather?
would you rather? Yeah.
And
They're
I'm
all
just
wearing
saying-
mustaches. It was absurd.
Well, I'm looking at
Funny,
that,
it's
and it would
funny.
be
Come on.
it would be fine if it was Envy doing that because you know all the players. You have history behind Time, you have a history behind
True,
Internet Hall.
true.
These are all people that you know, but you can't do a personality video like that when the players haven't been visible and haven't been in tournaments because you're just like, who are these
Yeah,
people?
I watched Envy play Jenga and was thoroughly.
Talking about the
entertained.
Splice hot tub.
No.
No,
Now we are. Now we are.
Yeah, forget everything we
Oh,
were just
no,
talking
not
about.
that. Wow.
Let's
Just
talk
like
about
a-
hot tubs.
I don't think any of us
Dog
know
sighting.
about that. All right. Well, anyways, let's move on. We don't have any Q&A
No,
today,
just
but
sign
we
off.
do have a Jeff Kaplan AMA to talk about. But if you guys do want to send in questions next week, go ahead and email those to theoverview@championv.tv, and we'll read them out next week. But Jeff Kaplan did an MMA a few days ago, and a few interesting points that came out from it. I figured it was worth talking about. PTR came up, and he basically confirmed that a lot of the data that comes from TTR, or at least just PTR, the way it's set up, isn't a very good environment for getting a lot of data. So I think the little data that they do get is watching pro players scrim, or just play on the PTR, but in custom games or whatnot. But just the general data is just not used. And nothing surprising there, right? I think we all knew that.
If they want general data from the PTR and want more people to play, they need to incentivize it somehow.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no
what we've been
incentive
saying.
plan
I'm
for-
against the concept of PTR entirely.
Why?
Why?
There needs to be a sandbox
Well,
to test.
Unless unless it's like a huge crazy new hero patch. I personally, this is personal, you don't have to like agree with it, but like I personally think that they should be confident enough in what they're doing that they don't need us to say Bastion 70% damage reduction is crazy. Like I understand why they need it, but I don't think that they should need it.
But they do.
But
Obviously
you
need
do
it.
Exactly.
because-
Exactly.
But here's the thing: is that you could think that game designers aren't high, but I would actually, in regards to that, they're dealing with a specific testing base in regards to what's in QA. There are some very, very good players within Blizzard, by the way, but there's times where you want more data to see how the shit goes. You could have gut feelings that maybe it is overtuned, but even if you have that gut feeling as a designer, you want to see that played out because you might think that you know exactly that it's going to be too much, but then you throw it onto Wild and it's not. Data is key.
So there's ways around that though, right? There's like this isn't a new problem for game designers. Like I know how Dota works. Like Dota pays players to play. Like they have like an internal team of like really high level players. Not like pros, but like I guess your average GM or 5K player will like just go in and say, "Hey, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. Like here's what this is." Like stuff like that is way better, I think,
Right.
than
Yeah,
the
well, I mean,
concept of
why
getting
not
it to
all,
the
though?
world.
But
When
the thing
when-
is, why not? If you have the ability to do all options, why not go there? Like what you're saying here in terms of having, say, a high MMR test group, maybe that's a good option you could do. Maybe they can have that in there. But they also, I think the reason why offhand why they wouldn't immediately feel the need for that is that they do have very high MMR players within Blizzard themselves that they have as part of that early test group. No, they're not in the pro scene immediately, but they could get info from that. But they are looking for that more broad spectrum data to see if there's potential things that are coming out where maybe it would affect pro play right away, but people have found other issues with it. I think what I'm getting at here is that no matter how you think it's going your change might work out, more data is crucial in evaluating it. So even though you think that, they should know better or they could do this to narrow it down beforehand, maybe.
Well,
But
so
Wait, Hex,
I think the
Hex,
I don't disagree with what you're saying. Like I actually don't. Like my point was more or less like I came from Dota, right? If something's broken in Dota, they just like patch it the next day. Like this is like the lead designer is just like, this is actually crazy, and he just nerfs it like literally that night. And I like really have trouble getting behind the whole like console verification process thing when like Overwatch League is coming soon. It's like completely PC centric. So like
think
well,
I don't know.
I mean,
maybe
go ahead,
like,
Hex.
maybe I'm being
Wait.
I'm being crazy, but like in my eyes, I think that that's completely valid as like a way to do it. Like just okay, give us Broken Bastion for like a couple weeks, or like not even a couple weeks, like a day, and then someone will be like, "This is actually insane," because I watched a match between Renegades and LG Evil, and this Bastion just got a 7K through 2 Rocket Barrages, a Nano Blossom, and a Genji Sword. And then like suddenly you just change it the next day, like I don't see why that's not doable.
So they're in this terrible middle ground where there is a dictator like Flame would prefer, where someone's just making these changes, and then they're kind of listening to not. But to ZP's point, I think the more data you have, the better, because it removes some biases of it. As someone who has watched Pro Talk in the Discord and how everyone would change certain heroes in there, good thing we're not listening to a select 30 people who all have the exact same opinion about certain heroes. It's good to have the diversity of opinions, and you have to remember this game is balanced for 25 million something users as well. So even if it affects the experience at one level, as long as it's not affecting 90%, I think if you incentivize more people to play on on PTR, give away a loot box, let experience carry over. The small things, that data would be so much more valuable because you would have the data. I don't think gold players are playing the PTR. I don't think they find it interesting or compelling, and I don't think they care how the next patch is coming up. But that might be useful information at some level.
One
And
thing that's
I-
worth
I-
noting, by the way,
it's-
just
that's
because
We'll go for it, ZB.
this is important to people that are listening here, but yeah, as far as the overlay goes, it's a little bit reverse. It has
Oh, yeah.
ZP closer to Hex and
Oh.
Hex closer to me.
Yes,
I've always
yes.
wanted-
I'm ZP, that's
Yes,
Hex.
yes.
Just so you
I
guys
actually
know.
didn't even notice that until you guys mentioned that. Yes, that's true. It's
I've always
reversed
wanted
right
to be ZP, so I'm living the dream.
now. Yeah.
There you go.
But no, so Flame, I mean, the thing is that, yeah, I mean, I think being on this podcast, talking about competitive Overwatch, I think we get a little bit skewed that there is a pretty big console community too. And the
I'm
thing
not
is,
like shitting on the
I know
console
you aren't, but
community.
the
I'm saying,
thing,
like,
but you know, I
you're-
think Blizzard wants to have at least the design, or at least the balance of the heroes be pretty close on both at any given point. Because of that, you know, I think the PTR is the proper way to do that. Because you know, you have to go through an approval process. I don't know how long it is. It could be 1 to 2 weeks, right? When you're talking about.
but that's like a core problem, I think. Like that's a fundamental huge problem when it comes to like accurately balancing the game.
I'm
Because
gonna look at balances going forward because I was ready to give up on the PTR after the Bastion stuff came through untouched. I was really
That
bothered
was
by
crazy.
it. But
That
no,
was
beyond
really
that, I
crazy.
was bothered by the very obvious bugs were still in the game that had been called out in the PTR. And then I was at the point of like, why do we have this? If it's not for bug fixing, if it's not for play testing, if it's not for balance feedback, then what's the point? But then it did seem like they were listening to it. So I'm going to give it one more patch. I always caution patience in most things. We'll see how they use the PTR coming up because I think the modus operandi of how they're using it has changed.
I agree in some weird way. I only disagree because there's been 3 patches so far since the season started. It's only been like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's over the top, I think. Like, I mean, I'm just being real. Like, I think it's too, like, how do you, I don't know, like when PTR testing involves Zenyatta putting Discord through shields, like in my eyes, that's like crazy. Like someone should have just been like, this is actually crazy. And like, that's just another PTR iteration. Maybe that lasts a week. So it's like it's just like hard to get behind in my eyes. Even as someone who like, I don't even play scrims anymore. So like, I've been playing a lot of PTR actually, but some of it's like, you get the feeling of like, okay, this is insane. Like, how do you? Like,
I mean, but that's kind of like
why do I need like? I could have told you this immediately. Like,
no, but that's
Well,
getting back to the
think-
data. Getting back to the data point again. I mean, it's like it's a sandbox. It's supposed to be a sandbox to a certain extent. Unfortunately, like PTR, I think generally, if you're looking at other games, it's supposed to be just trying things out, seeing how it goes. Unfortunately, with Overwatch, you know, we know that this is more of a staging area for the consoles, right? You know, just that approval process. If we didn't know that, we would still be thinking of PTR as just this testing grounds and trying things out like Discord through Shield. I think it's fine in a testing sandbox type of environment. So there's just a weird.
But then how are you
thing going
incentivizing
on.
me to play it as a pro player?
Yeah,
who
there's no
needs to
incentivization.
scrim and
Yes,
doesn't know when the
there-
next patch is coming out or what.
That needs
like-
to be changed. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree with that.
so,
You need to get more people because the data is just not even good right now. So you actually there's a critical mass that you need to get to actually be able to have useful data.
You could add another one that would just be the sandbox area of we're messing around. These are changes that we have. And then pre-patch a week out, you say, this is the patch that's going to hit if pros need to practice on it. This is the practice realm. This is coming through regardless after the data here. So it would be like 3-step process. I don't know if that would work either, but it solves some of the issues at least.
I will say, as far as it goes, I think the idea of a PTR is very positive. And here's the thing too, is that even in cases where perhaps you don't get changes to begin with, I will note people are going, why did they do the PTR and then they didn't listen to feedback, then go forth. I think some of that is also just not being clear on goals there, where the PTR is literally just, we're looking for stuff that is going to break the game in half. Is it not balance-wise, but actually like you start up the game and your C drive gets deleted type of stuff. So that was probably the goal of the last test that did have those balance changes in there, as well as a sneak preview. But I don't think it was communicated super well. That was the goal there. I think what has been learned from the feedback that's come out there is that people do want to have a say before it goes live. And it's not just, let's make sure nothing is crazy broken. Actually, people want to give their feedback on some of these things a little bit more in depth.
Well,
So that's something important to note, though, because I think people looked at that and went, you've ignored everything without realizing
Right.
that the goal there wasn't necessarily to get that level of feedback.
And
So
we've had PTR, just like we've had PTRs where, you know, like we had that giant PTR change back in September or something, right? Where they tried all kinds of different crazy things, and they even they let us know that, hey guys, we're gonna do some wacky things during this PTR session. It's gonna be longer, and I think that, you know, that's kind of fine. You know, whenever they're able to message that to us, and then we understand. But they haven't done that in a while. Like we have no
That's because
idea.
last time they said these are crazy, and then they put them in the next week. But my biggest problem, I think, with this patch recently was that the spawn changes were actually probably the biggest patch note. I mean, balance is whatever. You want to change Zenyatta's left click damage or like Anna's nade range, like something that you can do in the PTR custom games, I think is whatever. But like the spawn change is huge, and I would have rather play tested that for like weeks before they added that, because I'm still not even convinced that I did anything. Or nor am I even really like actually able to test as a spectator how it works, because there's no death timers on the cam. So it's like, I don't know how that works, if it works. Like I still watched a 3-minute overtime like single fight on Anubis last night, right? They're like bugged out, but it was 3 minutes.
That was
fight.
one of the
Oh,
weirdest
gosh,
things I've
yeah.
seen. It was the point where as a caster, I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure this is point B, and it should have capped. But what if there's a case where we just weren't paying attention? It was like point A finish. It was like those things where I'm second guessing my life. Don't look at that going,
That's
I know what I just saw, but do
Yeah.
I really know? Because I'm in the twilight zone now in regards to what's going on. And as it turns out, on further review, that it actually did just cap and didn't
The
count.
word is it's a visual bug. We don't know. We sent it to Blizzard.
It did look like a visual bug. I don't know if they
It did
actually
look-
capped after watching it back, but my
Yeah.
point being that like that fight went on for 3 minutes.
No.
Yeah.
Like, it actually is a visual bug, because the same thing happens on Payload. We just don't call it out. There's plenty of times on Payload where it
Yeah,
won't
I know
be
what you're
capped,
talking about. Yeah.
but the
0,
indicator
0.
will go away. So
Yeah.
you got the equivalent of that on Assault, but it's much more heartbreaking on Assault, because when you getting capped is so much more important there relative towards
So much harder to get it.
I'll just say, I agree with you. I agree with you, Flame, that when you're making sweeping changes to a game mode, which is a huger aspect of the game than the balance, that those things should probably be tested, or at the very least give us some data on it as well. Because having watched these games, it feels a little bit different, a little bit easier for offense to close out, but not anywhere near as substantial as I
Well,
thought.
so my question too, and this is like further
Last
on.
point
in
here.
the-
Yeah.
we can go to the next point of this thing if you're going, but like there was a post about Eichenwald.
Yeah. Okay, we're
And
gonna move on here.
how-
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's hard to get a 50-50 win rate.
50-50
so,
win
yeah.
rate. What does that mean? What does 50-50 win rate mean? So like, do they expect, or do they want defense to win 50% of the time against offense? Because I think that's awful. I mean, personally, I think that's awful. I think the game should be based around speed, like it's been.
I assume
Where
that's what they
it
mean.
should go to that second
I-
round.
I think there is from inferring from what we've seen here and inferring from how things, they have this idea that defense should be relatively even. And I don't know if that necessarily has to be the case. I think that you run a risk there, right? Because you take a look at forget even esports for a moment, just look at traditional sports. Offense and things movement or movement occurring is generally more impressive to people, more entertaining than defensive duels where you're waiting back and forth. You take a look at the NFL, you could very much make the argument that you had more entertainment when quarterback rules were lessened, or defensive rules were increased, and suddenly quarterbacks are able to throw more. In baseball, one of its most successful eras was when people were using steroids and getting crazy offensive numbers, which
True.
that has
Yep.
its own problems.
Yep.
But offense was very exciting.
It will
is the
always be the
takeaway.
difference in every
And
sport.
the
What
NBA
caters
too.
to
They did the same thing. NBA.
yeah, what caters to the casual and what caters to the hardcore fan is almost always offense, flashy. Casual people are excited and involved because bright colors and fireworks. And then the
But-
old pros like, oh man, I'll take a 6-3 defensive battle any day. You know.
Well,
Right,
but,
so,
but
I mean-
one thing about sports, though, one thing about those traditional sports is that it's not presented in a way that, it's just about, offense. Offense is supposed to win, and it's just about you just being, having them take longer, just like trying to impede them as much as you can. Where,
A lot of that's
in
narrative,
Overwatch,
that's
it's like,
presentation.
Well, so
Well,
okay.
I mean,
this goes
I
back
guess.
to. I mean, obviously Hex knows. Like this comes back to TF2. Like conceptually in TF2, this goes back to the spawn thing. Like defense always had higher spawns times than offense because offense was like maps were designed for offense to win.
Right.
And when you see map stats like, oh, we want defense. Like I don't like watching defensive holds. I don't like watching best of ones on Dorado where one team actually just can't cap second. And like that's a very common thing. Like I don't know if it's just been Carbon or Carbon plus another tournament, but it's been a very long time where teams are just actually struggling so hard on second point Dorado. and you can make changes to spawn timers that will like fix that issue, and
I agree with
like
that.
make offense win more. But like nobody wants to watch the 2-minute second round where the defense, the team that was on defense first, just plows through the second point in 2 seconds. Like I think that that's like the least enjoyable spectator experience.
My view is, and it's stylistic, of course, but here's the interesting thing is that when you tilt things a little bit more towards the offense, you get more movement, which is exciting, but you also raise the value of the defensive hold when it does happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if the defense is 50-50 and you get a defensive hold, it's just whatever. It happens all the time. If you're tilted more to the idea that 70-30 between two evenly matched teams and the defense plays out of their mind and shuts it down, that's incredibly exciting. So
I agree.
So for that, that's the problem, is that defense is more exciting the less frequently it happens, whereas offense is generally keeps things flowing. So I think you can make a strong stylistic argument, and this is what it is. I mean, you can, it is a game design argument one way or another, but I do think you can make an argument that tilting somewhat towards offense, whether it be 60-40, 70-30, could be potentially a very good idea.
One of the things that they're looking at, just to be specific, is that Jeff mentioned that they're taking a look at changing the first choke point, which has always been a pretty tough spot, especially in lower levels, I think, for folks to get through, you know, whether people throw Bastion at it or just some kind of craziness, right? At the higher levels, it's a little bit different, but, you know, at the lower skill levels, I think that choke has been a pretty difficult thing to get through, depending on how good your teammates are. Another thing that he mentioned was, you know, it's like pick rates. And so the first thing he mentioned was Winston is the least picked character in the game, which was surprising or not. I mean, I'm not super surprised. But then he also mentioned Lucio, which has been something a lot of folks, you know, in the pro community have been complaining about recently, or just a lot of Lucio players saying they're just tired of playing Lucio, you know, because it's such an auto pick. And he alluded basically that the perception of the pick rate is not as high as you based on the stats at all levels.
Well, that's the problem, right? That's another fundamental problem. And this is like me going off on another like rant, right? But like,
At least it comes with a disclaimer.
yeah, I mean, I'm not like again, like I'm not trying to like rain on anyone's parade, but if you buffed Lucio, like, or if you nerfed Lucio, like the players at the lower brackets wouldn't even like it wouldn't affect win rates in that bracket. Like you could make Pharah super better for like, I don't know, the GM players. It wouldn't really impact like.
I agree with
like
that.
There's like a cap, and I say this to my subs all the time because that's like, how do I climb out of gold? How do I climb out of diamond? And like, if you're in gold and you play Pharah or something, like you can do really well because the odds are that the hit scan in gold isn't that good. So if you're just flying in the air and hitting your rockets, like, or just spamming even, like you'll do well. And then like when you hit that peak where the 76 starts killing you or the McCree starts killing you, like then maybe you should start switching to Zarya, get really good at Zarya and get yourself to Masters or something. Like there's a different meta and a different peak of what each hero can do at each level. Like an Ana in gold is never going to be good, right? Because you have to rely on your teammates to do well with a nano boost and all the heals that you're like giving out. But if you're in Grandmasters and you're a really good Ana, then you can like make your good tank player out like even better, or your DPS player even better. So like I don't even know why pick rates matter. You have to pick one to balance around instead of trying to like mesh them all into one bucket, because it's just never gonna, like, it doesn't work like that.
Well, they're looking at changing.
I can tell you why it matters as far as it goes. Much to the chagrin of people who fall competitive, you do need to make sure things are somewhat even keel across all levels of the game, because that is your support base for the very top. Think of the entire game as a huge pyramid. You don't have the very top esports and the support that's behind it if you don't have all the ground level support. So things like enjoyability at lower levels of the game do matter, but it's about getting the balance of that right. Because, for example, for Lucio, I feel like should they nerf him or change things so he's less mandatory at the high end, which is definitely something that should happen. We shouldn't be having Lucio 24/7 pick rate forever. Clearly, that's an issue that needs to change. The key is finding a way of reworking Lucio so that he doesn't disappear from lower levels of the game. So, I mean, I understand what's being said here.
But wasn't that the
I don't think
point
he'll
that he
ever
made,
disappear
though?
from
But I'm saying, like, wasn't that Jeff's point that Lucio's not actually picked that much because lower level players don't pick him?
Right.
That was what he was alluding
Is that
to.
going to change anything? Like,
well, yes, it is going to change it. If you nerf Lucio, you're going to make him be picked even less by consequence. That's going to go across all levels. But the point that Jeff's getting at here is that they don't want to just slam Lucio with a Nerf bat and then have him not be played at all in entire segments of the game.
Well,
that's not seen as acceptable.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I agree, but
so
I don't
what
think
they
that
want-
the competitive standpoint is to nerf him. I think it's to rework him. Because I think
Right,
like move
but
speed
that's
up,
what they're probably going to
fundamental-
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're
But
gonna
that-
they're taking a look at. In the end, that's what he said.
Exactly,
they're taking a look
right?
at
Like
it,
that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. Like
Mhm.
it's different. I'm not like take Lucio out of the equation. I'm talking about like looking at pick rates. Like if Winston's a 5% pick rate, like is there a scenario where they need to buff him? Like is that the mentality that they have? Like oh, Winston's not picked enough in gold.
Oh, they definitely have that mentality. I mean, it's pretty
Well,
clear.
and
It's clear
that's
they
my
have
problem,
that mentality.
right? That's my
Yeah.
problem, and that's what I'm saying. Like you could make a hero like Meepo, who's like incredibly difficult to play for the best
Yeah.
players in Dota.
That's right.
And he has a niche, but if you pick him and you're like in the lowest skill bracket, you will get dumpstered. You will just continuously feed. And that's like what's gonna happen. Like that has to happen. That's like a normal like growing pain of video games. So like that's kind of my like kind of weird.
Right, but the way that Blizzard would go about a Meepo hero games, like let's say Meepo was the Storm, and granted, there's completely different dev teams. The Team 4 is very different from Team 1. Don't get me wrong, but there is an idea here where you want to make things more accessible. So I think if Meepo were in Heroes of the Storm, what would happen is that they would still be okay with him having the high-end option that if you pick at a lower level, you're going to get crushed. But they would still probably try and go, can we add an alternate way of playing him? Some sort of game-defining talent at level 1 that now lets Meepo be played in a different, less powerful way, but is far more accessible. So I think when you look at Lucio and potential reworks there, what you'd want to do is you'd want to find something to give him that can be pretty effective at lower levels of play, while perhaps not affecting the high end too much, or just rework him in general.
I mean,
Make him more fun. I think
Yeah.
the problem with Lucio's pick rate right now is he's not fun to play, and I think it's the same for Winston. Like I think at the very baseline of core design, beyond competitive, is this hero fun to play and fun to play against? And do I feel rewarded when I make a big play? And you don't really on Winston or Lucio, and even Reinhardt to an extent.
I think it's one of those things where, I mean, everybody I think is making great points. It's one of it's the classic issue when it comes to, you know, just games and having a casual and a pro scene, of where you don't want a character that's generally easy to play, you know, like lower skill cap, to have enormous amount of power too. And I mean, this happens in every game, like, so because you know, you want those characters or those heroes to be very difficult to play, like the Meepos, like you just made, or the Anas, you know, whatever it is, right? Something like a healer that requires hit scans, things like that. But you know, whenever you get to the point where Lucio is, you know, played across the board, and I guess he's not played as much at the lower level, which is crazy because I think that Lucio is the most accessible. Like you don't even have to push a button; you heal people around you. You know, it's like he's probably one of the most
but here's the
casual
thing.
friendly.
Are they teaching people how to play that? Because I've heard time and time again. Oh, I thought I just. Like so, there's honestly it is like a knowledge gap.
Yeah, there's a
Players
huge
should
knowledge
be.
gap.
One thing
Yeah,
to note here, when
yeah.
talking about Winston Lucio too, is that there's a trick here. This is where it's difficult because everyone's preferences are different. But when you make accessible heroes that are as accessible as they are, and don't get me wrong, Winston very clearly has a high skill cap from what we've seen here, even though it's not. The thing is, it's more subtle. It's not in your face.
Right.
You can get addicted to playing a hero like McCree because you're missing shots and you know, I could be hitting all these shots. For Winston, it's a little, the addictiveness skill wise is not in your face as it is with a McCree, because you're not going to hit a situation where you're not landing your shots. You're just
It's not
in range where
mechanical.
you're not.
It's
So, like,
more
yeah, I mean,
strategic
it's
and
binary.
positioning. Yeah, it's
But the skill there comes from your judgment and game sense,
right.
which probably, even if you're not very good at shooting, is not necessarily creating the same level of addictiveness that other heroes might be giving you.
I think, yeah. I mean, I wasn't even
That's
going
what-
as far as to say that like Winston was in this weird spot. I was more or less going towards the side where like people were saying that Mercy feels really weak now compared to Ana and Zenyatta. And then like they referenced Mercy has the highest pick rate across all of Overwatch or something, and that like Reinhardt was like number 13. So like they don't view Reinhardt as like
Well,
my point was more or less that like pick rate should not be determining like where you start balancing.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think
Unlike-
as a
yeah.
general
Well-
philosophy, it shouldn't dictate everything.
Pick rate is a smoke signal, though. It's one of those things where there's not always fire behind the smoke, but it's a case where you can use it to look at things that are strong outliers. And that is proven game balancing to some extent, where if something is picked an insane amount of times relative to everything else, that smoke, there could be fire in that it's overpowered, or vice versa, in where you have the opposite, where it's picked very little and then maybe it's too weak. Doesn't always coincide one-to-one, but that's definitely a signal to look at, and you want to figure out why.
All right. Well, one last point before we wrap up. There's one thing about in-game tournament. So of course it was asked. Seems like it's asked all the time. And he said that it is something they want to work on, but of course it's low priority. They have obviously a lot of things to still work on. I can't wait for when's the next iteration of the spectator mode going to come out, because there's still some work to be done there too.
They've been updating it every single patch. Like
Yeah.
PTR is different right now, but for some reason they keep keeping that red font, and I'm gonna complain every single
I am
time
too.
that I see it.
I'll be right there with you.
We've come a long way. Zeep and I were just reminiscing.
Uh-oh.
Percent charges. You didn't have hero health. Heroes are at the bottom of the screen, so we've come a long way as far as spectating goes. Not to say there isn't work to be done, but we're happy for the kill feed mostly. Knowing how someone died off camera is so important because it changes how everything else works.
Yeah. Okay, well, why don't we wrap up, because I know these guys got to get ready and cast tonight. So it's been a fantastic show. I think one of these lighter weeks always end up being like full weeks. That's what I love about doing the overview every week. But ZP Hex, yeah, thanks for dropping by. Hex is your first time on too, so it was a great pleasure having you on, and hopefully we can do it again. You guys want to do some shout outs before you take off? Start with you, ZP. Go ahead.
I'm not going to go through the full list of shoutouts, but I'll just say check out Carbon Entertainment tonight. 3 best of 5s. It's going to be a long night, but a good night. Lots of Overwatch heading your way later on. Also follow this guy on Twitter at Hexagrams.
Follow that guy on Twitter. I believe it's
nice.
TempoZP. TempoZP, you can find him at. We had a moment we wanted to talk about, so I just want to give good luck to our friend Bishop, who's going to be coaching Cloud9.
Yes.
We had the pleasure of meeting him in London in the tournament that wasn't. Very smart guy. He talked about wanting to coach immediately, and if any team could benefit from a coach right now, I think it could be Cloud9. Wish Bishop
they've
all
already
the luck in his coaching
they've already
endeavors.
been benefiting from it. So
Yeah.
it seems like
Bishop. I just
yeah.
want to I met him personally. He was amazing, very intelligent. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring.
Flame, got shoutouts?
I mean, I just wish I had someone living with me for a month that could promote me the way they promote each other.
I'll promote him.
Follow
I'll
Flame on
promote him.
Twitter.
Follow Flame on
Follow me on
Twitter.com/.
Twitter.
So at least you have Doggo Flame.
It's true.
Doggo, yeah.
Don't underestimate
Doggo
it.
trumps. Doggo's better than Hex. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's possible.
Once I teach her how to stream, there we go.
Oh, nice. Any shoutouts, man? Nothing?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to my Discord.
All right, cool.
I'm having a good time. I think right now it's getting better in terms of Overwatch. Like, its content is now there. There's obviously more tournaments. There's more games to watch, and like that lull after MLG is starting to go away, or it's feeling like it's going away. So we got our extra hour of sunlight. Like, I'm just in a better mood.
The extra hour of sunlight, man. Most people are pissed because they lose an hour.
They lost their hour of sleep, but we gain an hour of sun every single day for the next like 6 months. I think they'll get over it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, follow this guy, twitter.com/MattR0D. I'll be your partner in crime there. And I'll round things out by thanking the 3 of you guys, Flame, ZP, and Hex, for doing the show with me this week, and everybody for watching too. Follow the show's Twitter at twitter.com/theoverviewgg, and you can find the bots all on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/championv, and it'll be up on iTunes a little bit later tonight. The VODs will be up about 30 minutes after this, and iTunes always takes a little bit. But if you're on anything else, like audio-wise from a feed standpoint, it goes up instantly. So if you're using Google or whatever, you'll see it immediately. But that's going to be it, guys, for the overview this week. So for ZP, Hex, Flame, and myself, Champion V, we'll see you next week. Later.